Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome to this week's ArchCast. Dev will be along shortly. Vee may not make it today, as Romanian power is apparently not very trustworthy, as it turns out. He's got rolling power outages in his part of the third world, so we'll see whether or not he shows up. We can buy a little bit of time with contemporary news as well, as this happened pretty much right before we were going on today. Russell Brand, a very, very famous and popular comedian turned YouTuber recently, has been exposed to the usual barrage of accusations. I'm sure most of you have seen this particular headline before in relations to, well, everyone, damn near, frankly, at this day and age, which is sort of kind of the problem as well, as it seems to undermine the accusations just a tiny bit here and there, weirdly enough, doesn't it? Just a little bit. Just a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit. Also have Snaz sends in a Streamlabs before we start, saying, public announcement, name change. Snootenhoff is now Snowdog, Snaz, for the Snaz factor. Hardly Snaz in real life, he says. Oh, name change is accepted, of course. And Emo Otaku says, so will we get to hear topics or just the gypsy and the Canadian arguing again? Well, seeing as the gypsy is currently presumably buried underneath a mountain of, I don't know, snow? Mud? What's the natural disasters that happen in Romania? There will be significantly less arguing, if nothing else. As for Dev being late, well, you know, that's just Dev in a nutshell, frankly. The background for the thing here is, what's it as here? 4 women have alleged sexual assault, up to and including rape, apparently, from 2006 to 2013. Which immediately makes me question just a little bit, doesn't it? It's like, oh, so this happened 10 years ago? Oh, more, in some cases, plus 10 years ago. And yet, as usual, it's only becoming a topic now, is it? Weird. I wonder what could have changed recently that might have seen this change of opinion. Well, I mean, he has been getting a little bit vocal against certain groups and political parties lately. That might provide ample motivation, shall we say. Though apparently the Times alleged this investigation started back in 2009, a little bit before the spiciest period, so who knows? I will admit, Russell Brand, I've watched a couple of his things, not a whole lot, and for some reason I always disliked the guy. I can't put my finger on why, I can't give you a serious explanation, I can't back it up with any fact or figures. He's one of those people, you know that feeling you get sometimes, where you're just like, I don't like you. And that's it, that is all. That's the feeling I have a little bit about Russell Brand, so I'm hardly the most sympathetic of witnesses in this particular case, I will admit. And he was a mainstream media persona for quite some time, and we know how they tend to turn out. Question mark, question mark. At the same time, though, on the flip side of this particular coin is, this is hardly the first time somebody has suddenly been accused of something they have supposedly done a very, 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 very long time ago, and the people who are the accusers only elected to come forth when contacted by the media. Yeah. It's another one of those little things, isn't it? Why didn't you come forth earlier? Well, it's because the Times didn't contact me until now. What exactly did the Times tell you? What did they promise you? Who knows? That's always the question, too, in these cases, isn't it? Because especially if a newspaper comes along, they can't obviously legally go like, yeah, we'll pay you or something. But they could say, hey, you know, he's got a lot of money. A legal lawsuit right about now could earn you a little old dime. Speaking of little old dimes.
Hello! How's it going, Arch? Wait, where's V?
V is currently engulfed in a landslide.
What?
Yeah, that's my assumption anyways.
Oh.
He said he had a power outage, so he may or may not show up today. We'll have to wait and see.
So what's up? What did I miss? Listen, I was premiering my new video. It's a little bit spicy, but it's okay.
A little bit spicy.
I rated it. I rated all my guys into your stream though, so we should be good. Oh, and I gave you my stream in DMs if you didn't see it.
Yep, I saw it. I've done the thing.
Yep. So, did you see? Okay, before we get on to anything today, spicy. Did you see my thumbnail?
I did, and I think honestly it's one of your safer ones in relative comparison.
Really?
Yes, you've done far worse.
Wait, what? This is pretty spicy. I don't know, man. Like, what else have I had here? You know what I'll do? I'll send it to you so that you can show the chat. I'll send you like a clean version.
I'll DM
you the clean version.
You have done far worse, Dev.
There's the clean version.
I guarantee you.
What have I done that's worse?
Several things. I know at least a couple of your thumbnails I've looked at and reacted to and thought like, yeah, that's gonna get him a strike.
Well, I mean, it didn't. I'm actually strikeless. Somehow I slipped by. You know what I mean?
I guess
maybe someone likes me at YouTube. Actually, I do know someone likes me at YouTube, and I know somebody at YouTube, but maybe somebody else likes me at YouTube.
The bots are only so sensitive, I suppose, to thumbnails.
Well, it says whites only on this one, but it's very tiny text, so maybe they just won't notice.
Maybe. Well, before we get to the proper topics of today, one popped up just before we started, the whole Russell Brand thing.
I don't even know anything about Russell Brand. Isn't he like an anti-vax kind of? He's anti-vax now, but before the pandemic, he was doing like new age spiritual hippie shit.
Yeah, he's been a little bit all over the place, really. He's
accused of rape, sexual assault, and abuse. Oh, okay.
Yes, 4 women have accused him of, well, as you mentioned, rape, sexual assault, abuse, etc., over a period of 7 odd years. The last accusation was made in, well, last interaction that they were accusing him of was happened in 2013. So these are 10-year-old allegations at the newest.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, there's... So, when it comes to conversations like this, you have to basically go on intuition.
Fire is
right?
the answer.
And so, if you have somebody who, like, 10 years later, one person comes out, and then 3 other people come out, and then you read the stories, and it just sounds like a jilted lover, and it's like years later. Like, the Super Mega story kind of sounded like that, right? Lex's accusations against Dawn in the Super Mega story. That sounded like jilted lover territory. It's like, oh, well, I don't know about that. But then you see some other people where, like, a credible claim comes out, and then, like, 5 more women come out, and then 20 more women come out, and they all sound a lot more credible. It's like, okay, maybe there's something more to this one.
Heresy's the question.
Yeah, because there is a little bit of melodrama here. So one of his accusers was 16 at the time, which is the age of consent in Britain, mind you, where she says... she was sent, their car was sent to pick her up at school to take her out of class to go see Russell Brand. As her taxi approached Russell Brand's home, Alice remembers the driver begging her not to go inside. Recognizing the destination, he had started to ask questions. Alice admitted she was still 16 and still in school. She says the driver replied that his daughter was the same age and entreated Alice, "Please, I'm asking you to not go in there. You could be my little girl, and I wouldn't want someone to do this for her, or I would want someone to do it for her." He offered to take her home without charge, but Alice insisted she was fine. He had just such a sad look in his eyes, she recalls. It's one of those things, like, could that have happened? Sure, but, like, it's one of those movie plotline things, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know, like, I don't buy that a taxi driver is going to be like, don't go in there.
No, like, I know it's
a random-ass taxi. I mean, maybe, but it doesn't seem that...
It's not impossible, but... I don't know, like, for me... I have an instinctual dislike of Russell Brand. I don't even know why. I can't put my finger on it. I just don't like him. It's one of those things.
I haven't seen enough of him, so I can't. I don't know. But
and there were apparently reports from his employer, Channel 4, as well, that he had some interactions with young women which were called into question. That was back during the early days of like 2009, 6, etc. So when things were a little bit less crazy, at least to a certain degree. I don't know. Like,
hold on. What was the age gap there? Like,
well, the
16's legal in Canada, right? But at the same time, if you have like a 16-year-old and a 20-year-old, it's kind of weird, but it's not nearly as bad as like a 16-year-old and a 50-year-old. You know what I mean?
Believe what is he now? I believe the age gap must have been at least 10, probably 20 years.
Shit. And I guess, I mean, what really matters is, are they above, if we're talking legally, are they above the age of consent, right?
Yes,
that's what matters. Yeah.
The accusation seems to be the sexual abuse rather than any like pedophilia or anything like that. So that's nice, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you do get, like, you see some isolated lefty communities where they're straight. They just go after age gaps.
Yep.
So like, if the age gap is 28 and 36, they say that's too much and you can't date that person. And it is pedophilia adjacent to date someone who is of age but that much younger than you.
Yeah, like, I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all.
Have you seen some of those takes though? It's the internet. You know what? The internet will never not be amazing. Like, very entertaining. There's tons of retards everywhere. It's great to hang out on.
If anything, like, one of my main reasons for doubting this, though, is, one, it's taken them 10 years to come forward, so, like, okay, why now? Well, I was contacted by the Times, that's why now. Like, okay, that's...
Do you have something? Well, actually, if that's the case, has there been any recent controversy with this guy?
Well, sort of, pseudo, kind of. He's been in the spotlight for a while for being not on the left, shall we say. So there's that. And
I was under the assumption that he was definitely a lefty.
Well, he sort of is, a little bit. But he's definitely not our guy, shall we say, but he's not theirs either.
Is he like the populist left, so he's like the outsider left rather than the establishment left? That kind of thing?
I don't know about today. I know he was back in the day, but I don't know right now.
Okay.
Another thing that makes me a little bit wary, too, is I had just a quick look at, like, the news tab about the guy, and in the span of the last 2-3 hours, I think, there are just dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of stories. So this was one of those things where the entirety of the mainstream media cranked into overproduction at the just snap of a finger, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe it's just because he's a celebrity, but it makes me suspicious whenever I see the entirety of the mainstream in lockstep around a narrative.
It's honestly, if I had to guess with no prior knowledge, it's probably because of his anti-vax recent sentiments. Because I know that he's been he has a podcast, and he does a lot of anti-vax stuff on his podcast ever since the COVID vaccine became a controversy. So it's probably
dangerous.
They're probably going after him for anti-vax stuff, and this is their cover. That's what I would guess.
Not unreasonable. Not unreasonable. Let's see. Boog says the dog pill one was worse. This is me giving Dev the attention he requires to feed his narcissism.
Hey, Boog, what's going on? Wait, hold on. My dog pill, maybe the video was worse, but not the thumbnail.
I don't know, Dev. I don't know.
I'm going to go look it up. Hold on. Now, to be fair, like, that video is hard banned off YouTube. Like, if you upload it to any alternate channel, you immediately get struck. So, like, they are watching for the dog pill video.
When you hating says there needs to be a law that you can't take this stuff to court if you don't take it to the police almost immediately after it happened. See, I think there should be a grace period, because obviously if you're raped, that's a traumatizing event, right? But there needs to be a reasonable level of grace period. Like, if you come out of this 10 years later, a decade, like, I don't think you can remember exactly what happened anymore. Like, it's been 10 goddamn years.
Here, you want me to give a spicy take? You want a spicy take? I mean, last week was chock full of spicy takes. You had to take the video down.
Go on.
Okay, so the cold hard reality is rape, due to the nature of the crime, is impossible to actually prove unless you have like video evidence, and even then that could be faked, right? Because every form of physical evidence that proves rape also proves consensual sex.
Yes, that is one of the issues. Well, there is a combination of factors, and this is one of the reasons why you'd have to head to the police immediately. Bruising, for example, signs of a struggle, because this also means that if you injured your attacker, there will be cell material under, for example, nails, for example, stuff like that.
Yeah.
There is ways to, at the very least, ameliorate the level of doubt to a significant degree, but 10 years later, none of that exists. Absolutely none.
Yeah. I feel like if you're coming out years and years later and you're only putting it in the court of public opinion, it's because you want to socially punish
I have
someone.
lost.
Yes. Because unless there are witnesses or corroborating evidence they've somehow kept onto, like a videotape, as you say, could be fake, but that would be
Heresy's the
convincing.
question. Fire is the answer.
It's a 10-year-old crime that's coming up today. Could he have done it? I don't know. He's a mainstream media personality from back in the day. I've seen enough of those to be skeptical.
Oh, people in the chat are saying that injuries would prove it. No, it wouldn't, because sometimes people like rough sex. All right. And in so many he said, she said cases where it relies on physical evidence, the accused always says, well, it was rough sex that we consented to. So it's one of those crimes where you can't really prove it with physical evidence. Like, you can prove theft because your stuff's gone, and then, oh, the guy has your stuff. Like, you can prove that, right? You can't prove it with rape with physical evidence. That is the black pill on that topic.
At the very least, it's very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Zonta says, at what point does thinking Russia is winning go from being too skeptical of one side and uncritical of the other to just being completely stupid? Oh, Russia is definitely not winning. I can guarantee you that. Could they be winning in the long term? Well, I still think they probably would. Depending upon whether or not there is an enforced peace treaty, which is the most likely outcome. But even Ukraine is starting to get exhausted from this shit. Like, casualties are ridiculous on both sides, as far as we can see. So if Russia wanted to go total war, Russia would probably eventually win. But it's also one of those things, like, what do you define victory as at that point? You've been humiliated in front of the entire world. Like, the majority of your war machine is scrap or dead, and you've managed to make yourself incredibly unpopular amongst your own populace, you know? It's not exactly what I would call a victory at that point.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where the victory for them was a 3-day war.
Yes.
And they didn't get it.
Yes, it needed
So-
to be a blitzkrieg. Oh, the bottom zone is 5 memberships. Thank you very much, persons. And congratulations to Brendan Mayers, Tech Marine, Grim Reaper 9900, Norseman, and Attila the Hungry. Your whole Senate says, remember when Dev put himself goose-stepping in full fascist gear in his I am a fascist video? Did you, Dev?
Yes. Yeah, so I did a video called Am I a Fascist? And I photoshopped my head onto Hitler's body giving the salute. And it was basically just me doing the political compass, just to kind of get an updated political compass, so back in, I think, 2020 or something. And I mean, I was, halfway down the libertarian part, and then maybe 2 blocks over on the left part. So it's like, you know what? I haven't changed politically in 10 years. I've been here for a very long time.
Boog says they're going after Russell because he had Tucker on his show. He did, apparently, recently. Yeah, I can see that.
Oh, really? Maybe that's it.
Now, they claim that the investigation started back in 2009, so that's something, but it's also like, okay, it took you 4 years to get all this together? Honestly, I think maybe the Tucker angle is the more reasonable one. It's like, oh, he did something we didn't like. Fire off the headpiece. Boog says last one was a joke. I'm presuming that was the Dev one. Lives in Dev's walls specifically, says, can you tell Dev he needs to pick up milk? Thanks. Dev, you need to pick up milk.
All right. I just took a bag of milk out of the freezer. It'll be thawed by the end of the day.
A bag of milk. Canadians
You've
do
seen
that, by the way.
You've seen Canada's bags of milk, right?
Yeah, you're weird. What can I say?
Does the chat want to see him? Chat, do you want to see? I can link to Arch. The Canadian bags of milk.
PSU says, is there a place where we can see the dog pill video?
It's on BitChute,
BitChute?
Rumble, and any other alternative site that I have a channel on. Odyssey, I think it's on Odyssey. No, it's all over the place. Okay, here, Arch. Pull that up. So, here's how Canadians do milk. You buy a bag. It's a sealed bag with milk in it. And then you have a holder for the bag. And so the bag sits in the holder, and then you pour it. You cut a hole in the top of the bag, and then you pour it. It's the dumbest way to deliver a liquid. But for some reason, this is how Canadians want to do it.
Canada should not be a country. What can I say? Alright, after our little bit of gossip, then let's get into the first big topic of the day. I'm sure you've been following this. Unity.
I've heard something about it. My editor has been compiling a bunch of sources because he thinks it might make for a good video on my channel, but I haven't fully followed it. It's the charging per install, right? That's the story?
Yes, that is that's the big part of the story. So they are introducing a runtime fee where they will be charging you for the installation of the video game that you've made. Because it has Unity code in it, and that justifies them charging you for somebody installing your video game. Somehow.
Okay, so they're charging the creator of the game if a player installs the game.
Yes.
Okay, so like if you wanted to bankrupt the
Heresy's
company,
the
you could
question.
download a game
Fire
and then
is the
just set it to
answer.
automatically install like 100,000 times.
Yes, that was indeed one of the problems that was brought up immediately. Unity has since sort of pseudo kind of equivocated on that point, kind of. So they've said that they have a back-end system designed to spot fraudulent and or malicious installations, which is quite the term.
Oh, okay, malicious installations.
Yep, malicious
Man.
installations.
So at this point, it's almost like they're gonna have to build out some sort of monitoring apparatus to try to pick out when an install is legitimate and should be charged and when it isn't. I wonder if that is going to end up costing them more than the actual revenue they get from the installs.
Well, there's where the funny thing comes in. So Unity's system for spotting fraudulent installations, etc., it's based on a piece of software they already have. And here's the kicker. It doesn't actually necessarily track directly. It makes estimates of how many installs your game is likely to produce, and then it bills you.
Really? That sounds kind of ridiculous.
Yes, it does. And then they will totally change that up afterwards when they get the data. Or so they claim. That is why they can spot fraudulent installs. So basically, they're thinking to themselves that... I can see their logic. Their logic is, your IP or machine code or whatever, right, makes an install, and then their system will go like, okay, machine AB, blah, 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 has made an installation, and then it makes another one. I'm going to mark the other one as a fraudulent because I've made the estimation that there will only be one install from this area, this item, this particular sale, etc. I'm sure they have some tracking systems worked into Unity at this point, which basically does that. The issue is, of course, that a lot of this information can be spoofed incredibly easily. As the moment people figure out what exactly Unity is using to make their estimates, they can just actively change that one metric by feeding Unity the information that, oh no, I'm installing this on my desktop now. Oh, now I'm installing it on a phone. Oh, now I'm installing it on my Steam Deck, etc. Since they will charge you for every installation on every device as well.
Every installation, every device. Okay, this sounds like more trouble than it's worth.
Well, that's where one of the interesting things come into play, because it might actually be so thoroughly retarded that it is not worth it at all. Because there was an interesting little happenstance that happened right before this. I'll put it in the link channel again. Unity executives, including the CEO, sold shares prior to the recent controversial announcement.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I just heard about this. That it might end up being what is it called? What's the phrase for it? When you know something's going to happen in a company, then you sell, and to make money, it's illegal.
Well, the optimistic
called...
charge would be insider trading.
Heresy.
Yeah, that's what. Oh, it's
Fire
insider
is
trading,
the
right?
answer.
Yes.
Yep. The pessimistic charge would be corporate sabotage.
Corporate.
Because, okay, insider trading. The problem with insider trading is it's very difficult to prove because it's an intent crime. Basically, they have to prove that these people sold their shares with the specific intent of doing so because they knew this was a really bad decision, rather than them simply having elected to sell the shares regardless. So basically, you have to prove that it was because of this bad decision that they sold the shares, which is why insider trading is so goddamn difficult to prove. You, in essence, need phone transcripts or emails or witness conversations, at least, saying that this person stated that he was going to do this because of information he had from inside the company.
Yeah. So a lot of these more white-collar crimes, the reason people get away with them is because if they're high enough in a corporation or in government to be able to do this sort of thing, they're also generally intelligent enough not to leave an obvious trail. So you're probably not going to find, a memo where the guy says, I'm going to dump my stock and make a bunch of money and then have my company crash and burn. Like, you're not going to find that, right?
Yeah, memo to self: kill company, profit in the duration.
It's one of those things where it's like, one of the big reasons they probably won't be able to get Nancy Pelosi and her husband is because they've probably covered their tracks enough for it to be legally not feasible to prosecute them. Right?
Yes, there were several politicians who invested heavily in Dominion voting machines right before they were elected to be used in elections. Coincidence happen. What can we say?
Oh, chat. That's why Trump is fucked.
See, again, everyone knows it. Like, it's obvious. Politicians who vote for this particular system to be put into place benefit greatly from it being put into place. Like, everyone knows it happened, but the issue is we need to prove it. And proving it is really fucking hard.
Yeah. The proving part is
Heresy's
the
the
tough part,
question.
right? That's
the answer.
To not beat a dead horse too much. That's the big reason I think one of these indictments is going to stick on Trump, because I think that he was bumbling enough to actually leave behind enough fingerprints on things, while a lot of the other crooks in government they're a bit more intelligent about it.
There's also the corporate sabotage thing, because
Heresy's the question.
it's a
Fire
far
is the
more
answer.
spicy accusation, but
Yeah, here. So I don't know what corporate sabotage means, but I'm guessing it simply means that, like, he actively tanked his own company to make a
Yes.
profit off of it short term.
yes, or to ruin the company for a competitor's sake.
And he was like on the competitor's payroll or something.
Yeah, something like that. Because a year or so ago, there was another thing where Unity bought a company named Iron Source. Have you heard about those?
No, this is all new to me.
Iron Source, well, they straight up they put malware in their software, which they then sold.
Heresy's the question. Fire is the answer.
Nope, this is a completely new. I haven't heard a single drop of this. This is all new information.
The company was dead. Like, they had been caught red-handed. They themselves accused that it was totally somebody else who put the malware, the literal virus, inside of their source code. Nobody believed them. And then Unity, out of nowhere, merged with the company, paying them $4 billion in the process. It's a little bit weird,
okay.
isn't it?
It is. Do you have like a source on this or a...
Oh yeah, this is a
We can
matter
read
of
this
public
later,
public record, but I'll give you the like what I'm just
Okay.
reading from here basically, because this is a bit
Yeah.
older news, well recognized.
Let's see. 2022, yeah.
Yeah. So that was weird, and nobody quite understood why. Like the optimistic assumption would be that they wanted to just gut the company, for example, and take all of their employees and code and software and stuff like that, right? But the less optimistic one was that the people in Iron Source somehow managed to get a connection within Unity via their CEOs and stuff. Now, there's a lot of names going around here, and I'm not going to mention any names, just because.
You don't want to get assassinated in the middle of the night?
Yeah, something like that. Because there's a lot of sketchy shit going on here. But basically, there seems to have been very dishonest actors inside of Unity that do not appear to have had Unity's
I have lost. Shit.
best interests in mind, shall we say.
Yeah, so this is where the whole is it fiduciary duty, where basically if you're on the board, you can't just tank a company and enrich yourself and leave. You actually have to act for the good of the company.
Yes.
It's illegal if you don't. One of those things. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to
I know a little bit
actually
about
try.
it. Yeah. You have to try.
Yes.
I wonder what the standard is for that sort of like for that sort of prosecution. Like, how can you tell if someone was just amazingly incompetent or if they actually destroyed the company to enrich themselves?
Who knows? Like, I would imagine you'd need like testimony or transcript or something saying I'm gonna screw everybody over.
Yeah, I guess you just need something.
There is also the thing that one of the head honchos over at Unity, again, since we are talking about crimes here, I shouldn't mention any names, but anyone who knows probably knows. He
Alleged,
was also alleged, yes, very highly
guarantees
ranked in
citizenship.
PayPal before its big merge. He was also in Tesla, before it went public. He is a big name in the business that has, through several times, again and again, earned a lot of money on mergers that seemingly made no sense between very large companies and companies in shitty positions. So, yeah, there's a lot of sketchy shit around this. And all of it basically comes down to the fact that this is a ridiculous idea. The whole install thing is, as you mentioned immediately, right? Malicious installs. It is obviously abusable. Immediately obviously abusable, right?
Well, it's also just that, like, when you, and this is a more general, like, capitalistic sense, right? When you buy a product, you're expecting to buy it, right? And you're, like, the exchange of money is for the physical object, and that made sense when we were just exchanging stuff in a very general way, right? But now we have like all of these services where you're not actually buying a product, you're buying a service. So a great example recently, or in the past 5 years or so, was Adobe, where you could buy a license for Adobe, but you can't buy that anymore. Now you have to rent a license, and you just get like, oh, you have to pay them every year or whatever it is to use your copy of Adobe Premiere or Adobe Audition or whatever, After Effects, whatever it is that you're using. And so now, we're moving into with Netflix, and we went from physical movies to just renting movies like on a service. So this is we're no longer owning things. We're simply buying subscriptions to services that provide things that we use but we don't own, right? And the in some instances that makes sense, right? Because if you buy a DVD copy of a movie, you don't own the right to distribute the movie. You own one copy, right? So you can't like make 1,000 copies of it and then sell it. So it makes sense that you're not actually, even when you buy a physical thing, if it's artwork, you're not buying the whole thing. You're buying like a copy of it. So we have some understanding that you're not when you buy something, you're not getting like the entire metaphysical thing, if that makes sense. You're getting the right to have one copy of it and use one copy of it personally, but not to redistribute it. So I just the issue is that the natural end result of that is as they keep pushing and exploring, well, what can we charge people and what can we give them in return? You naturally center on really strange methods of exchange, and now we're here, right? Like, how many times you install a program is that's what they're charging you for now. You know, it doesn't make any logical sense, but that is the 2023 economy now. You know.
Well, as you mentioned, it started with licensing, right? Because back in the day, you could simply buy a software, and that was it. Nice and simple.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now there's licensing. Because this licensing, obviously, is the company going, hold on, I could get paid forever? Well, that sounds pretty swell. And that is exactly what it is. Like, you can look at Adobe Photoshop, for example, right? The least trial they have, like the lowest plan, is basically $20 a month. So basically, within 3 months, you paid the price of like a regular game software. And this is forever. If you ever stop paying this, you lose access to Photoshop, you lose access to the tools, you lose access to the files to open in Photoshop, etc. So once you start paying, you can never quit, which is brilliantly evil.
Listen, the Pirate Bay exists for a reason, okay, guys?
Oh yeah, let's just say that I haven't updated my version of Photoshop for a while.
So, like, let's say I think Unity is used by a lot of companies, not just indie companies, but like big companies. I think Squaresoft used Unity for some of their games. I think. So let's say the deal between Squaresoft and Unity is, okay, for every copy of a game that you sell, we get however many cents that it is. So we get our cut.
Oh,
right?
they've already got that.
Probably makes sense.
Here's the thing
Yeah.
as well. Unity already charges a license fee, which you pay every month, and they charge you a cut of your revenue. So this is them triple dipping into your profits now.
Yeah, this is why it seems so ridiculous, because now it just seems like they're going to charge you for every single point of contact. So every time a game is installed, they'll charge you. Every time you open up their application on your computer to make your game, maybe they can charge you there too. Every time you download the exe from their website, maybe they'll charge you there, like a handling fee, a 50-cent handling fee every time you install it, the application, right? Every time you boot the game up, you get charged, maybe. Like, every single point of contact, you can add a paywall there.
Yep.
It just seems scummy at that point.
Oh, it is. And the thing is, too, developers have already gotten very aggressive on this. There are developers who have started to say that they're going to delete their games straight up the moment this goes into effect. There are tons of developers who are just changing engines. Like, this is doing immeasurable damage to Unity. And what's interesting is they're not backing down. In fact, they're trying to equivocate and go like, oh, it's not as bad as you think, etc. But they're not abandoning it. Normally, you would expect a company that receives this amount of backlash to go like, oh, okay, we won't do it. We'll try again in a year, but we won't do it today. Not this time. In fact, one of the more ridiculous things they've gone, because people are wondering, of course, what happens to games that are released on subscription services? What happens to Game Pass games, for example, right? Will the developers just be left holding the bag there for every install on a game that is essentially free on many of these services? Unity claims that they will be charging the distribution platform, so Microsoft, Apple, Google, Netflix, etc., the fee instead.
Really?
Yeah.
So even like if it's a free game, they're just going to charge the store.
Yeah, because it's an install.
Yeah. Man, okay. I just had like a brainwave. Okay, imagine if the way that everyone fights this is they all start charging each other, right? So Google will now charge Unity every single time a Unity game is downloaded off of the Google App Store because it's a handling fee,
Yeah.
right? Or
Yeah.
or every game developer that uses Unity will charge them. Like you could just nickel and dime each other in like a war at this point. Every company could just be the cheapest possible version they could be and charge every other company for everything constantly and just see where this goes.
Yeah, because in theory, because
Service
Microsoft
guarantee
ain't gonna
citizenship.
take this shit. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, because somebody made an estimate, right, of Game Pass in like the last 4 years, I think, or something like that. The number of installs or something over a period of time, and it came to like $4 billion at 20 cents per install. You think Microsoft is just gonna be like, oh yes, here, have $1 billion a year? Of course not. So what they could do is, like, exactly like you said, go, oh, you're going to charge us 20 cents for the install? Oh, well, look at this, Unity. We've made a handling fee of 20 cents. Wow.
That's how it's gonna work out.
Or 25 cents, more likely.
Just to fuck you, an extra 5 cent fuck you.
Yep.
So here's something that's kind of interesting. You said that they're not backing down, right? And that they might, in most cases, companies they just try again a year or two later.
Yeah, because that's the tactic. You do something incredibly unpopular, okay, you back away, and you do it again in a year, hoping for less attention.
Yep. So those of you who don't know, this is this has been a process now for about 20 years, maybe a little bit longer. Here, Arch, I'm going to send you something. I would like you not to pull it up because I need to keep my relationship with this person a secret. Okay?
Oh.
But this is somebody that I know. Okay? And as you can see, he's worked on some pretty big name titles in the games industry. Okay? And I knew him before I knew him when he was I was in high school, he was in college. Long before I was SFO. We were like on old IRC chat rooms in the late 1990s. That's where I met this guy. And I kept touch with him as he blew up and had a massive career. And we spoke at one point because I don't know if any of you guys in the chat remember, one of the first downloadable titles for the Wii, all right? So we're going back now 15 years. For the Wii was it was Final Fantasy My Life as a King, okay? And the big controversy about that game is that the entire game is in the download when you download the file. However, 90% of the game's content is paywalled. And you have to go into the Wii shop, the Wii shop's gone now. You had to go into the Wii shop back in the day and, spend $1 to unlock, one of the shops in the town, or spend $1 to unlock a level. And basically it was a very cheap game, and you downloaded the whole thing and you had it on your Wii, but you were nickeled and dimed all the content of the game. And the common view back then was, why are you paywalling things that are already in the game? Like, if you're going to buy DLC, fine, but it should be another file that you download. If you've already downloaded the game onto your system, how come I can't just play it? And that's how everyone thought back. This was like 2007 or something, right? Or 2008. Everyone thought this back then. And so I was talking to this guy because he was just getting started in the game industry, and we've talked about this topic since. And he said, "Listen, now that I have some experience in the game industry, here's how this sort of thing works, okay? People high up have ideas, and they know that they're not going to be accepted right now, but they will boil the frog in them for about 10 to 15 years. So, for example, he told me 15 years ago that we would be about where we are now with paid DLC and how permissive we are of certain things. We would be permissive of day one patches. We would be permissive of core parts of the game being left out and included in DLC. Because 15 years ago, even though it was unacceptable, all they had to do is just kind of nickel and dime us there, move us there inch by inch. So this sort of thing has been well known in the game industry for quite a long time.
Yes.
And they've just been kind of, and this is talking about video games, but it's in software in general, right? So at this point, there is a genuine belief that in 15 to 20 years, a genuine belief in the industry, that in 15 to 20 years, there's not going to be any more physical games, and there's going to be very little in the way of game ownership. It's all going to be games that you rent through stuff like Game Pass. And the only thing stopping it from happening right now is Steam.
Yep. And even Steam, I remind you, technically, you don't own any of your games on Steam either. It's a license fee.
I'm not sure about that because Gabe Newell has said he said himself, like, no, we consider this your property. Like, if you die, your children inherit your Steam account, stuff like that. Like, he's made a commitment to that.
Yeah, he might have, but on Steam, it is a subscription agreement. Steam, legally speaking, claims that you are a subscriber of your games.
I have to look into that.
Now, Gabe, hopefully, and the thing is, like, their TOS, the subscription agreement, it is in essence what I call a live and let live situation, where we recognize that Steam needs the power to yeet somebody's account if they, if they're a habitual hacker, for example. They need to be able to go into a Steam account and go like, okay, we're just going to take away your video game because you've been proven to be a cheater multiple times. You can't do that if you own the video game. There is no legal way for Steam to do that. But if it's a subscription agreement, then they have the ability to terminate that agreement and take the game away from the cheater. So long as they don't abuse that rule, everyone's happy to live and let live. Thus, the name I've given it. But the issue is, that is a dependency. It's the honor system, because we trust Steam to not abuse their power, and that's why it's allowed. Because if this entered into an actual court, their subscription agreement would not stand, because, well, they're not charging a subscription. It's not a subscription agreement. They are charging for individual projects, products, etc.
Yeah, and I mean, Gabe comes from that 80s and 90s hacker scene from way back in the day, and they were all very much about like free information. They're very anarchistic in their ethics. So I think when he says it, he means it. But
Yes.
Gabe's not going to last forever. He will die eventually, and someone else will take over Steam.
Yep. And it does seem that they are heading in the way of, games as a service. Because, as you mentioned, on-disc DLC used to be a huge problem. Now, it's not. It's natural. It's entirely natural. Every game comes with all of its DLC already on the disc. Speaking of as well, as for piracy, Unity says that their own fraud protection that they develop will prevent piracy. And that the developers will simply need to trust their say on the matter, and that's it. That's pretty great, isn't it? Like, no, bro, we've totally solved this. Okay, can you tell us how? Nah, bro, that's proprietary. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I know that like Unity is not quite the same thing as what I've been talking about, but it's also like software is all going to behave like this, whether it's games or otherwise. It's all going to go like this, I think, eventually.
It's all about nickel and diming as much as possible, particularly as we all know, the economy is not doing fantastic right now, and it's probably going to do a lot worse before it gets better, which is why companies realize that they need all the money they can get now. Money isn't cheap anymore. They can't simply go to an investor and go, hey, look, our new character is female, fat, and in a wheelchair, and have money poured down their necks. They're going to actually have to earn money again. And seeing as they've spent the last few years producing absolute garbage, simply making good video games isn't necessarily an option, frankly, for a lot of them.
Yeah, that's true. Oh man, there are so many people who are like, I can't believe you want writers to be fired or not going to make any money from because the writers strike, and it's like, yeah, but they're shitty writers, like they can't do their job.
Oh, I
And
know.
and as soon as you say that, some of them will come out and just say, listen, you should. It doesn't matter how good or bad you are at your job, you should be able to make some money. And it's like, well, no, actually,
No,
you have to be able to do the job.
Actually, we can get to that in a moment, because there's another interesting thing that happened recently surrounding that. But one of the things that a lot of people have also been talking about is, of course, They're like this article here. Wait, is Unity allowed to just change its fee structure like that? Because a lot of people are going like, this is clearly illegal. They can't just do that to you. Oh, they can. Oh, they can. Because the issue is, you have no rights in licensing agreements. None. Like, it's the same with me and Dev. We have no rights via the YouTube. YouTube can fuck us tomorrow. And what could we do? We could contact YouTube on Twitter. That's our recourse.
The issue ultimately is that when you scroll through that entire long thing and then click I agree at the end, that is you agreeing to whatever they're going to do to you.
Yes, and in that long scroll, it's basically going like, we can do anything we want, whenever we want, for any reason we want.
Yeah, exactly. So this idea that, it's like, no, you already agreed to it. You already agreed to it and you clicked that.
Yes. This is also the huge issue with licensing agreements, because in essence, you are signing over all of your rights completely to the studio, and you are simply crossing your little hands, putting your fingers together and begging, please, please do not fuck me, please. That's it.
And now, to be fair, occasionally you get some mad lad who uses this precedent to their advantage, right? Because there was that one guy who just started sending invoices to big tech companies saying that he performed a job for them, and they just paid it without even looking. And then as soon as they realized, they got angry and started going after him, and they realized in the contracts that they paid, it said, I did nothing and you paid me, and you're okay with this. Because no one fucking read it. No one reads anything anymore. So it's not a good precedent, though. You should be reading the things that you sign, but none of us ever do.
Yep. And that's one of the things also why this isn't actually legally enforceable. So their best argument here, if they're going to go down the legal angle, is that TOS is not law. That's the issue. You cannot legislate via TOS, even though companies do so all the time. One of the arguments that the businesses will make, though, is that it is... what's the term? It's... God, now I've forgotten. Jesus, it's industry standard. That was the term I was looking for. Which in essence means nothing, but it's basically a verbal trick to glower up at the 75-year-old judge and go, well, everybody else is doing it.
Yeah. Or you have like global standards, modern audiences. They all kind of appeal to the same thing. It's an appeal to normalcy. It's like, this is how it is. This is how it's done. Everyone does it like this. Get with the times if you're complaining. It's all appeals to normalcy.
Yes. And of course, as Unity points out, our terms of service provide that Unity may add or change fees at any time. And the issue is, like, okay, that is an incredibly unreasonable point, and it does mean that Unity can ruin you whenever they want, but... what the fuck are your options? I guarantee you the same clause is in Epic's deal. I guarantee you the same clause is in damn near every engine's deal. Because the engines too realize that occasionally they're going to need to change their tax, or their income, etc. And they need to have the power to do so.
Well, there's this does mean that there's first of all, like, I guess there's two things here. One is that this does mean that there's an opening in the market, right? So if every major engine company is going to do this, that means that, now you can have an engine company come up who isn't going to do this, and they might actually get more business that way because they're going around the market standard. Secondly, I was just reminded of something. I don't know if you're probably old enough to remember this. Do you recall back in like the PlayStation 3 era, so like late 2000s, very early 2010s, there was an industry standard of physical games costing more than digital downloads, because the physical game, there's actually, like, it had to be manufactured and shipped and sold at a store, but a digital download, you just download it. So you could actually pick up the same game for like $10 cheaper if you bought it online. And that was the standard for a while, until people realized that they had boiled the frog enough on digital purchases that they could just make them the same thing.
Yep. I even remember that one of the problems, because there was a lot of problems with digital games to begin with. Like, how about my internet connectivity? I've only got a terrible line. How can I download stuff? What about patches? Won't they ruin my internet? So on and so on. And one of the reasons a lot of people made for moving digital was that it would be cheaper, and that those savings would obviously be passed on to the consumer. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they were for like 5 years, and then it kind of changed.
Indeed, because they realized they could charge full price for a digital product, and nobody had the amount of outrage required to stop it, and that's why we're now paying $60, now soon $70 for fully digital products.
It's 90 here in Canada.
Oh, I get stuffed, I guess.
Yep. Yeah.
But what is interesting is, you mentioned a hole in the market, right? Because a lot of people are probably thinking, okay, well, Unity is dead right now. All of the other engines are going to look so much better. Everyone's going to switch over. None of the other big engines have commented on this. You would have expected Unreal Engine, owned by Epic, right, to immediately be like, oh, we don't do this. Because that's been their entire thing with Steam, right? Oh, we give a much bigger slice to the developers. We're really good, guys. They've been silent on this. Because I guarantee you, the rest of the industry is in the same spot where they would like to earn more money. And right now, they're all looking at Unity and wondering, will they get away with it? Because if they do, the majority of the engines will adopt a policy similar to this.
Service guarantees
Yeah.
citizenship.
If they get away with it, they're just going to be like, well, I guess we can make money this way too.
Yep.
So I guess it's probably pretty important then that the outrage continue, because
Heresy's the
I mean,
question.
it's literally that meme.
Fire
They
is
can't
the
keep getting
answer.
away with it.
Oh. If the history of gaming proves anything, it is that they can.
Yeah, they'll just try again in a few years.
More than likely. Let's see. Noah A42 says disconnecting the money out from being determined by the money is a problem. Disconnecting the money out from being determined by the money in is a problem. The money out from being determined by the money in is the problem. Okay. I think I understand. Adding on fees that hasn't got to do with revenue. So, because here's the thing, of course, if you install the game, then okay, that's a sale, right? And 20 cents out of a $60 video game purchase, fine, that's nothing, all right? But then you install the game on your Steam Deck or on another computer, and now you've got 60 cents, right? And if indeed they don't manage to get their system running properly so people can just keep installing it, well, there was this funny little post on everyone's favorite 4chan board. Now, I do like this one. Angry female character in important position. 500 reinstalls. A loudmouth black character. 2,000 reinstalls for each.
Non-white protagonist, interracial relationship, overtly homosexual character, uglified female character, trans character. Game developers make a public statement supporting any in-game graphics downgraded compared to advertised graphics. That's how I vote with my wallet in Unity video games.
Yep. And I mean...
That's actually... Yeah, it's pretty funny.
He makes a good point, doesn't he? Like, okay, we've been told about voting with our wallets, right? I think everyone agrees that voting with your wallet is dead in the current year. Like, because
I don't agree. I don't agree at all. I mean, the success of the Target and the Bud Light boycotts, that's voting with your wallet, and it's worked.
It is, but that is only a recent thing. And that is less of voting with your wallet and more so the public outrage. Because what you have to do to vote with your wallet is that the old statement was, if you don't like it, don't buy it. That is not going to affect change because the market is that large. We are talking the largest entertainment industry on Earth. Voting with your wallet today means convincing the normies, which is very hard because there's a lot of them and they are barely cognizant of what's going on. But this...
and you know what? That actually makes sense because that is what the leftoids tried to do with Hogwarts Legacy. Now it backfired in their fucking face, but they at least understood that they were a small enough group that them not playing it wasn't going to change anything, so they had to go after other people. Just from like a political realist standpoint.
But this is giving power back into the hands of the consumer. You just need to download a nice little program of 4chan, which changes your computer's identification number every time you do a reinstall, and then Just set the bot to running.
Yep, just run it overnight while you're doing something, while you're sleeping or you're out at work or whatever. Yeah, there you go.
No, literally. Well, we'll see how good Unity's fraud detection system is, I suppose. Yeah, this is not going to work out well. The whole sentence says, "Are all philosophical zombies? No, the whole sentence says AIs. Jesus, are philosophical zombies." I suppose in a way.
So that was for V, and V is not here, and it's because I talked about philosophical zombies in my video today.
I mean, they are, because they're brainless, but they can do one thing. So,
Well, a philosophical zombie is a creature that has complicated enough inputs and outputs that it behaves exactly like a regular human, but it doesn't have a soul, right? So, because to be honest, humans don't have souls, and we are all just extremely complicated inputs and outputs, which is that's the true black pill of that conversation, right? But like the idea of the philosophical zombie is like, could you craft a machine that is identical to a human in terms of how it thinks? And if you did, does it have consciousness? If it doesn't have consciousness, well, then it's a philosophical zombie. But then what does that say about humans? Does that mean that consciousness is just a fraud?
Sweet
Is
baby
that, like,
Jesus.
that
You're
our
gonna trigger me.
like our brains, we just fool ourselves into having consciousness, but we actually don't?
Right, so this is the can AI be human argument, in essence, then.
It's actually, can humans be human argument in the end.
Yes, it's the derivative version of it. It's the aha, but what if? It is literally the deconstructivist view, because I disagree. I think humans do have a soul. Now, is that soul a see-through mumbo-jumbo thing connected to the guy in the sky? I don't know about that. But there is absolutely something that makes us us, that gives us all of our little tics, our personalities, our likes, our dislikes, our quirks, etc. And I do believe that goes beyond simple chemical reactions in our brain. Because otherwise, we should be able to analyze this shit. And we can't. Even today, we can't figure out why our brains do certain things, why we do certain things. Like, we can't connect an action to a specific thing inside of our brain, etc.
Well, that might just be because you haven't figured it out yet.
It might be, but if the answer is it might be, then the answer is just as reasonable that it might be a soul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the idea basically is like, consciousness is an emergent property. And emergent properties basically are things that don't exist on their own, but as a result of the intersection of several complex systems all working together, they appear, right? So the metaphor is like, you shine 3 lights on an object and it casts 3 different shadows, and the shadows converge to make like a different picture than you would have ever thought, right? So, something like that, right? Where basically something that exists as a result of its foundational components intersecting. So that's what the human conscious experience is. And then you think like, okay, well, does that mean that consciousness actually exists? It's like, well, it kind of does, and it kind of doesn't. It's it's one of those rough things where like you it's very easy to do away with the concept of free will if you think of it like this. Like, if all you are is your biology and your life experiences, then where's the free will?
Well, there's the thing too, right? The idea of what is a being. See, because the argument might then also become, in the case of the AI, if we can make an AI that manages to pretend to be human effectively enough, then we have created a human. In essence, then, if we create a software that manages to fool somebody into thinking that it's a human being, we have created a human. In which case, ChatGPT is a human.
Mm-hmm.
Which is obviously not the case.
So the context of this conversation is that I did a video on the philosophy in Final Fantasy 16. And in that game, basically, you have it's like magically induced climate change that's destroying the world. And the problem is that humans with willpower are using magic. However, if a being simply uses magic without having a will or a consciousness, it doesn't cause the ecological disaster. So the villain, spoilers, the villain's main plan is to render all humans unconscious, but not like they're asleep or anything. It's to make them all automatons, right? Just to they'll still be alive and they'll still be going around doing things, but they won't have any consciousness behind the eyes. They'll just be they'll still probably act the exact same way. There just won't be a person inside the body. Their bodies will just be doing things without the divine spark that is the soul inside of them. And so that's the villain's ultimate goal, to save the planet, is to abolish consciousness. And he talks about this using he talks about it in the terms of equality, of making things equal, and it's very communistic the way that this guy talks.
Well, here's the thing too, right? Because a lot of this I do not believe, for example, that a robot could ever be human. I do not believe that a robot should ever have rights, no matter how good it is at pretending to be human. Even if you have a robot that reacts exactly like a human would, precisely, like covered in carbon flesh or something, right? It's a Cylon from fucking Galactica, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is still something we have created. We have built it. We know what the transistors inside of it does. We have programmed it to do this. Every reaction it makes, we can trace back to a line of code. We know with absolute certainty that this is a construct. Whereas people, again, we don't know why we act the way we do. Now, we can make the enlightened assumption and go like, well, it must be physics, it must be chemistry, it must be biology. We simply haven't figured it out yet. And that might be true as well, but it is also one of those assumptions fueled by our own hubris. The idea that we have already figured out absolutely everything, that we know everything. Which I also believe to not be true. It's the same thing with, like, when the Aztecs met the Spaniards, and they saw the horse for the first time and thought, what the fuck? Well, that's got to be God, right? Because we've never seen anything like that. The fact that we haven't seen the soul, to continue to use the over-the-blown religious terminology, is not enough evidence that it does not exist. And since we have no evidence to explain why humans act the way they do otherwise, it seems as logical an inference as any other. Particularly also as we have seen, for example, with I don't know if you looked in this, but like children lost in the wild, for example, they tend to develop in far more human directions than animal directions, even when only surrounded by animals.
I'm trying to. There was a lot there. Give me a second. There was something I wanted to say, but you rolled by the part. I didn't want to interrupt you. Robots, AI, intelligence. Oh no. Okay. Yes. Here's the thing. When it comes to like extremely complicated, let's say like self-teaching algorithms, we actually don't know what's going on under the hood there either.
We do.
If you ask,
we do.
I mean, I saw that CGP Grey video where the robots are teaching the robots, and like, if you ask the people who actually own these algorithms what it's doing, they're like, we don't know. That's why when they tweak it, everything falls apart constantly, because they have no clue what they're doing.
Yes, but we do know. See, here's the thing. People like saying this. It's the same thing with programming. Like, programmers will say they change something and something else stopped working. I did a bit of programming. I did a lot of 3D design, and this happens all the time. When you do something and it changes something you didn't think it would change. But as you retrace your steps, you will always, inevitably, find the reason why. It doesn't just happen. There is no such thing as a just, boop, oh, that happened magically. And working with robots, I can tell you, they do weird fucking shit all the time like this. But there's always a reason. It never just happens.
Well, sure, but I mean, you can make that argument with humans. We just haven't. That's
the thing. Again,
we don't have the technology yet to truly know what our brains do, but we will. Someday.
Well, do we? Because if we can't tell, because with robots we can tell. We can tell for absolute certain. We can. It can be a difficult task. You know, you might need to work your way through millions of lines of code, but we know it happened because of a reason. But with humans, we can't actually prove that. We don't have that technology. We are simply assuming that technology exists.
Well, okay, but I mean, assume technology continues on and we don't, collapse into some sort of dark age, right? In 1,000 years, you don't think we'll have some sort of brain scanning technology that will actually allow us to see brain code or some equivalent of it?
Quite possibly. In which case, we will then be able to go like, okay, well, we're clearly just manufactured
Heresy's
as
the
well,
question.
in a way.
Fire is the
If we
answer.
arrive at that point. But that's the question. If we arrive at that point. Because there's still
So-
the possibility that something exists beyond our understanding. Just like people
So-
used to believe in magic before. So like, well, magic was just a science. Like, well, no, it wasn't, as we've looked at now. It's like, we can't find magic anywhere, so it must not exist.
Well, the shamans do call the lightning, Arch.
Exactly, but that's what I mean, right? We used
Yeah.
to believe in these absolutes, just like now we believe in the absolute of science.
So I guess in that 1,000 year in the future scenario where we do actually, we have opened the hood and we do know everything about how the brain works.
Mhm.
If we get to that point, are we then, have we actually reached the point where we're all just, we've all lost the divine spark
Heresy's
of
the
God and
question.
we're just
Fire is the
flesh
answer.
golems being animated by neurotransmitters?
Yes. Like, yes, if we entertain that idea, right, in 1,000 years, we can scan the brain, and we know exactly what makes a person do the thing. Like, it tells you why you elect to scratch your head with your middle finger or your right finger, etc. If we arrive at that point, then we are simply constructs like everything else. And in that scenario, there is no reason why a robot could not be alive. Because my definition of alive will then change. Because my definition of alive right now is something more than a construct, something we can't fully explain.
I guess the issue ultimately is then if we ever get to that point of scientific understanding, if you think the crisis of meaning is bad now, just wait.
Yes. Like, when we arrive at the realization that literally... Because it also means that, okay, if we're all just constructs, why don't we construct ourselves for the better? Like criminality, for example. What causes a person to be a criminal? Well, it's actually that bit right there. All right. How about we fry that bit? Wouldn't that make society better? What would be the argument against it? Free will? You don't have any fucking free will. I can bring up the exact, like, chemical balance that makes you do this. I can make you shit your pants right now, you know?
Yeah. And that's kind of that is the
Heresy's the
scary
question.
techno
Fire is
futurist
the answer.
kind of situation where everyone's like body modding and changing themselves, and then it's like, well, shit, what are you actually? Turns out not very much.
Yeah, because if we
it's a
arrive at
scary
that
future.
point, all we are hugely ineffective, destructive plants. You know,
Mhm.
we devour stuff around us, we shit it out eventually,
Heresy's the question.
and then
Fire
we
is
move
the
on to
answer.
eat the next resource.
And I mean, I know everyone says like, I can't live in the bug. I can't live in the pod. I can't eat the bugs. I can't live like that. I have a soul. So you know what? In the future, when no one has a soul and everyone's brains have been clipped so that you all want to live in the pod and eat the bugs, that's where we're going.
Yep. There will be no criminality. There will be no violence. There will be no disorder. We will all simply be things traveling the earth looking for our next infusion of delicious green protein and carbon slop. Jesus.
Welcome to the future, guys.
See? This is why I think I'll hold dearly onto my conception of a soul for a little while longer.
Yeah, exactly, right? So we just got to the reason why reactionary politics exists and why people see fit to not jump wholeheartedly into the modernist project despite all of the obvious material wealth it's granted us.
It's also the fact that, like, there are clearly certain things we are better with and certain things we are better without. Like, again, assuming the meat puppet society, right? Would the meat puppet society be a good society? Would anyone wish to live in the meat puppet society?
Well, the meat puppets would be made to want to live in it.
Yeah, true, but would any of us? Like, I remember, I asked
Well, no,
my
we wouldn't.
chat a
We
question
wouldn't.
years ago, not years ago, or back to the Kibbs's chat. Imagine a box. Inside of this box is everything you could ever want. Everything. It's the hottest girlfriend in the world. It's infinite planes. You know, it's every bit of entertainment. It's Rings of Power being good and true to J.R. Tolkien. All of this is inside the box. But you will never leave the box. Would you enter the box?
How big is the box?
Box is as large as you want it to be.
Honestly, you'd probably forget that there's an outside of the box soon enough if you entered into it. This is
That's the
the
Debian
Coombe
view.
machine argument, right? Yeah, this is the Coombe machine argument.
Sort
Yeah.
of, but a pinch more advanced, because the Coombe machine argument is inherently repulsive.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
like-
this is the would you accept a false reality if it were perfect and you didn't know it was false? I mean, if you were already in it, you'd say, "Well, it seems real. Like, of course I'll stay here." But if
Yeah.
you're not in it, would you want to go there?
I'll start a poll. Love the box? Love the box, yes or no?
So here's the thing. Like, none of us would want to live in that future, right? But also, none of us would want to live in an equivalent past from 1,000 years ago. You know,
Mhm.
who wants to live in the society of 1,000 years ago where we have none of the modern amenities?
Well,
None of us.
Judging
we
by
all like
how much time the average man spends thinking about the Roman Empire, Dev.
Yeah, I know
Here's
that
the
meme. Yeah, I know
question.
that. But like,
Fire is the
are you really
answer.
going to give up like electricity and reliable access to food and the ability to, let's say, not work completely shit jobs for 18 hours a day for your entire life? Dying young of a disease, having just the worst medical problems that can't be
Your
solved.
teeth falls
right?
out of 20.
Yep. So I think people tend to want to be close to where they currently are. All right? Maybe they want to be a little bit different. But just as we wouldn't want to live in the meat puppet society, we also wouldn't want to live in like a feudal society either. None of us would want to be
Well,
serfs.
Heresy's the
There
question.
is a question
Fire
then
is
to
the
be
answer.
raised. Maybe we've peaked. Like, maybe, unironically, society as we have, or I would say probably society 20 years ago, maybe that was actually quite close to the apex of humanity. Now, obviously, we had problems then as well, but, like, maybe that was actually fairly close. Like, we had a decent balance of freedom, a decent balance of quality, a decent balance of expectations via reality, etc.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was, of course, based on a lot of bullshit things that we made up as well. Like religion, for example. Like, assuming that there is no God, right? But still, a lot of people find tremendous comfort in religion. So why not keep religion for those who wish to partake in it, etc.?
I know what you mean. So you're taking on like the Francis Fukuyama end of history kind of view then.
I don't know. I just come up with
You-
this bullshit by myself, Dev.
You don't know Francis Fukuyama?
Not off the top of my head now.
So basically, he wrote a book. I forget which book of his it was, but basically, he wrote a book saying that like of all the various political forms that have come out of the Enlightenment, liberalism is basically the last one. The idea of there's still capitalism, there's still private property, there's still the public-private split, but there's also a welfare state. There's social services. There's healthcare.
Heresy's the question.
There's
Fire
a
is the
reason. There's
answer.
not too much taxes, so you're not being oppressed. Not too little taxes, so that society doesn't function. The '90s Democrat, a neo-lib society was the apex of
Heresy's the
human
question.
civilization.
Fire is the answer.
Well, we don't know if that's true, but it does seem to be our happiest point. So clearly, we must have done something right.
Yeah. Fukuyama called it the end of
guarantees
history.
citizenship.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I believe next. I do think there are things that can be improved even then, but yeah, no, I get the point.
Oh, me too. Yeah, me too. I mean, I've read Fukuyama. I'm not completely on board with him. Like he is like the number one neoliberal philosopher. If you want to know about neoliberalism and all of its modern glory, Fukuyama's the guy.
Again, and once again, chat, the box question, for those who arrived a little bit later. Inside of the box is everything you could ever want. It is all the best food in the world, the best women in the world. The box is as large as you want it to be. The box is as small as you want it to be. The box is paradise in every single conceivable way. But none of it's real. Would you enter the box? And you can never leave. We'll leave that poll running for a little bit. Right, Dev, we've had a slight deviation, but it was a good one. That was a good deviation.
A
Heresy's the
deviation,
question.
you'd say?
Fire is the
No.
answer.
Okay.
Because you were wrong. You're like, machines can be human. That's obviously wrong.
I only want machines to be human so I can violate them. You know this.
That's true. Why You Hatin' says, many of Nintendo's games use the Unity engine. I suspect they are preparing their army of lawyer ninjas. Very possibly. I imagine some of the larger companies might be looking at Unity's change of rules and going, I don't know about that, Jim. Now, there was one interesting little other thing. Let's see if I... To wrap that topic up before going to Superchats again. Yes, okay, two little funny things, actually. One was that Unity closed its offices briefly because of a death threat. And it's the meme, Dev. The call came from within the building.
Did it actually?
Yes, it did actually.
From one of its own employees.
Yes.
That's great.
Now, the cynical take on this would, of course, be that Unity was like, God damn it, we're getting so much flack. Come on, somebody call in a bomb threat. We need some sympathy. And what was
Do we
it?
know which employee? Like, was it some like purple-haired leftoid or something?
We don't know yet. No.
Hmm.
There's also this: Unity will waive its fee if you switch to its ad monetization service. So if you agree to earn the money another way, then they'll spare you the 20 cents.
Wait, hold on. Let me look at this. Okay, so basically, if you have ads in your smartphone game, they want them to be Unity ads. They want you to use Unity's ad service.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. If you use their ad service, they'll waiver the fee.
Okay, I found it. Here we go. Okay. Francis Fukuyama is best known for his book The End of History and the Last Man, which argues that the spread of liberal democracies and free market capitalism of the West and Western lifestyle may signal the endpoint of humanity's socio-cultural evolution and become the final form of human government. We've reached the apex. The liberals won.
Well, if by liberals we mean the 2000s liberals, then I declare victory.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. That's what he's talking about too. Like, a lot of his work is analysis of authoritarian political systems and how they all kind of crumble, and he has identified, what he wouldn't use the word woke, but we would. What, like, a woke government, how it would fail, and he has kind of accurately identified that. It fails in the same way that religious societies do.
Splunk Gemma says, I've been using Unity for 2 years
Heresy's
now,
the
and I'm
question.
in a tough position
Fire
on
is
whether
the
to cut
answer.
my losses and jump ship to another game engine. Sunk cost and time is a tough pill to swallow for a two-man indie team. Oh, it absolutely is. Like, Unity knows they've got most of you by the short hairs, because your option is to switch platform, which means a long time of reprogramming to make it work with a new engine. Like, you're looking at a year plus of work, probably, at least, Or you, ironically enough, pray that your game won't be successful enough to reach the point where they start charging you the 20 cents.
I mean, you might get lucky and someone makes like an open source variant that you can import. Like, it very easily imports and converts Unity assets or something. I'm sure someone will make that tool eventually.
Quite possibly. Max Kessler donates 5 memberships. Thank you very much, sir. And congratulations to Arc 5, Thomas Fitzpatrick, Darkness Enmity, Luke Thorpe, and Drift Speed. Artemis Fowl gets ready to attack Dev once again and says, hold up, Dev. If you think that people who are high up in politics and corporations are not dumb enough to leave a paper trail, why do you demand that as evidence for FBI wrongdoing?
Because you still need it. Like, hold on. Okay, hold on. If your argument is that the people that you want to prosecute are guilty, but they're smart enough not to leave evidence, that might be true. It's in fact probably likely, but you still need the evidence. Like,
Well, it sounds to me like we need a rework of the judicial system at that point.
it's like, I know you're guilty. I have no proof of it though. Like, that's not gonna fly. You need the evidence.
Maybe it should fly, Dev.
Arch, you're guilty. I don't need evidence anymore. I'm bringing you in.
Maybe future crimes is a good thing. I think we shall burn the judicial system, and I think we shall make a more inclusive one. Yes. Black Shoe says, I'll give money to say, I hate Dev. That is wrong and gay. Well, there you go.
Oh. Well, there you go.
Black Jew says, sorry, want to say Dev is wrong and gay. I hate phones keyboards as well. Well, there you go. Dev is wrong and gay. But that's correct on both accounts.
Yeah, that was the conversation from Liquid Swan yesterday. So he believes that you can't actually be bisexual.
Yes, you're homosexual.
Yeah, the idea is that homosexuality has a one-drop rule.
Yep.
So it doesn't matter how many girls you've been with. If you've also been with a guy, you're just gay.
You're gay. It's a one-cum rule.
A one-cum rule?
Yep.
Does it matter who does the coming?
Well, yes, to a certain degree.
So wait. Does that mean that I have to break up with Naomi now?
Oh, it just means that she's gay too.
Well, to be fair, her longest lasting relationship besides me was with another girl. So she's bi as well. We're both bi.
Thus, Dev found himself checkmated in a corner.
That we both swing both ways?
Marksman of 117p says, Dev, did you see someone post a torrent on
Here's
X
the
and all the Zoomers were
Fire is the
complaining
answer.
pirating gives them too much anxiety, so they don't do it?
I did not see that. Okay, who sent you that super chat? I'm gonna ask him for. I want to see this. Who was it?
Marksman of 117b.
I don't know who that is. I thought it was somebody who knew me. Shit. Oh man, that sounds wild though. Post a torrent, and then the Zoomers are like, I can't do it. It gives me anxiety. Really?
No, like
actually Twitter, right?
that is actually a thing, though. I think you even covered this a little while ago. But a lot of the reason why current year kids don't torrent and just pay the $60-$70 is because they're too fucking stupid and or lazy to do a torrent and use a cracking software.
Oh yeah. So it wasn't that they have anxiety about doing it. Like, oh, I'm gonna get caught. It's not that. It's that they're too lazy to learn new technology. Yeah, I did do a video on that, on how like every generation until the Zoomers, they have adopted new technology and like basically outsmarted their parents with it. And Zoomers aren't doing that now because they're too used to like very simplistic like phone applications. I have lost shit. I want to find that tweet though. That sounds amazing. Torrent anxiety. Jesus.
The Real
Service
Hallucinator
guarantees
says, there
citizenship.
is the same boiling the frog in politics too, Dev. That is true.
What was that? Oh yeah, like, yeah, you see this a lot in a great example was Scottish independence, where they just keep coming back. It's like, we're gonna vote on it again, we're gonna vote on it again, we're gonna vote on it again. And it's like, well, we already said no 4 fucking times or whatever it was.
At some point, you're going to have to take the no and just accept it.
Nah, they're not gonna.
Nolly says, recently I downloaded a game, Teppen, and took Dev's advice and read the TOS. In the privacy agreement and most other parts, it was accepted or go. That said, Arch, by reading this, you hereby sign over rights to Dev, to me. Well, fair enough.
Oh, okay.
And see, that's the problem. That's also one of the reasons why TOS cannot be legal, because It's literally, hey, accept this or you don't get to use the product you purchased. That is obviously nonsense. Now, if it was refuse the TOS, instantly get a full refund, they might have an argument. But they don't do that. They go like, okay, we'll just close the video game then. Anubius Fox says, where is V? How can I ask him about this week's gun? Also, I know what's wrong with Dev. He's a Gowler. Ooh.
I'm a Gowler? What do you mean? Oh, I mean a jailer?
Yep.
Who am I imprisoning?
Well, normal people with your ridiculous standards of evidence, no doubt.
Who am I imprisoning? Don't look in my basement.
V is currently stuck in a Romanian mudslide. Or so is my story anyways.
Ukrainian crossfire.
It's a bit far, but potential, sure. Let's see. Lists of disasters in Romania by death toll. Plague. Okay, he's currently stuck in a plague. That's why he doesn't have electricity right now. There you go. Dev the End says, Dev wrong again. People have souls, you communist. That's a good fucking... I should have called him a communist. That's a great point, actually. Like, only Dev would be like, all people are soulless mechanical flesh puppets. Little hammers and sickles on their skulls, no doubt.
You know, the atheist versus religion argument is not a communist versus capitalist argument.
Oh, but I can call you a communist all the same. Dev wants everyone to be equal. That's why everyone's a flesh puppet to Dev.
Everyone but me. I'm the only main character.
Glowy says, animals are controlled by inputs and outputs. Yes, humans can act like animals. Humans are affected by inputs and outputs or stimulus, but humans can go an extra mile like tool development. Yes, animals can use tools, but it's like a computer brute force logic. Well, that is another part of the argument as well. Like, okay, there must clearly be something weird with us humans, as we are the only one out of God only knows how many billions of species that have evolved, whereas every other species, like, is at maximum at the level of beating each other to death with broken twigs.
Well, that actually makes sense to me. I mean, as soon as humans appeared, all the other like near humans kind of disappeared, and we either killed them or fucked them or both, right? And so now there's just humans. So I think if there's a niche in the environment for a hyper intelligent species, we have completely filled it.
Well, sort of, but what you're talking about is basically the Neanderthals and the what the fuck hell? Yeah, no, the Neanderthals and the Homo sapiens, which seems like to be less of a different races thing, as in monkeys to dolphins, and more of an offshoot of the human tree that we fucked and or beat into submission.
Heresy's the question.
And that only happened in one area. The weird thing is that the entirety of the rest of the globe saw nothing similar. Like, why weren't there in, for example, North America or South America, like a completely different species that grew intelligence, or an island somewhere, or anything like that, right? We seem to be the single sole exception on our entire planet, except for one other pseudo-human species of monkey, which we swiftly racialized, racist into the ground.
Well, I think there just wasn't enough time apart, right? Like,
we had a fair old bit.
Well, yeah, but not enough to develop, from monkey to human.
Well, monkeys have been around for as long as we have, longer, I'm pretty sure.
No, I know, but like the land bridge between North America and Asia, it was an ice bridge, right? So it was like constantly opening and closing. I don't think North and South America were isolated for long enough to develop an intelligent species.
Possibly. I would need to look up how long it's open and closed, etc., and human migration, etc., and blah, 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 to come up with a rebuttal to that immediately. Well, weirdly enough, I don't have that data in the back of my head.
I kind of do, because I did that video on it maybe 6 or 9 months ago. Because
I
there's
have lost.
there's Native American activists who believe that they evolved here independently of the rest of the human race, which is why they should have special privileges, and like this is their truly native land.
Well, Dev, I, for one, am perfectly happy with saying that the Indians are not human. Because that's what you're saying there.
I know, no, they don't seem to understand where that logic goes, but they're saying that like they have the reason that Europe colonizing North and South America was such a grave injustice is because they have a completely different origin than the rest of humanity. And it's like, okay, do you really want to go down this route? Like, do you really want to?
Like, do you know what we did to the
Service
last group of
guarantees
non-humans on the planet? That seems like a very poor idea. So the rest of humanity instantly turns towards the native, going like, "You what, mate? Excuse me? Yeah, we're saying that human rights don't apply to us. Oh, really now?" That's very spicy.
Oh god, yeah, there was a socialist, anarchist, witch, twin-spirited, trans Native American activist that I looked into, and she was saying how like her people are uniquely spiritual and different from all the other races of the world because the Great Spirit put them there.
Oh.
And how also if you deny any of this, you're being racist.
Well, I mean, in that case, I would like to correct you and say speciesist, actually, but yeah, no, I don't know. I'm pretty convinced by this, Dev. Do you have any solid arguments to say that the Indians weren't placed on Earth by the Great Spirit?
It's been a while since I looked into this chick. She basically said that all of the various evidence of the migration, it was all faked by white people.
See, I am always impressed by how fucking industrious we are.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I am happy to buy into all of this
lost.
shit. I am more than happy. Like, the black supremacists, all of that, I am happy to say that we humans went to Africa, a hyper-advanced society, conquered them, and then eradicated the entirety of their history to the point of faking archaeological evidence. I am happy to accept this narrative.
God, I love the alternate history conspiracy theorists. They're fucking incredible. They're so ridiculous.
Alternative history, Dev? Alternative?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think it's the only one.
It's the only one?
Well, we have
Service guarantees
an interesting line of thinking we've headed down there.
Oh my god, we've been going for an hour and a half and we haven't even gotten through the first topic yet.
Well, no, we were more or less done with the Unity one. We're just getting through the Superchats and the Unity one.
Service guarantees
Okay.
citizenship.
Maranga2 says, Arch, I have a small request. Search David Seymour, party vote Ken, and find the first image. You'll enjoy it. Okay, I'll not Google it. I shall DuckDuckGo it. We shall not use Google. Google is evil. That's not that funny of an image. Okay, we'll try Googling it too then. Yes, that is a much better image. I like that image much more. That's a good image. I'll put it in the link channel too. Speaking of, what about the box argument? The Boxian discourse. Let's see. The Boxian discourse shall end now. With 65%, 64% saying no, they would not like to live in the box. There are only 35% deviant flesh puppet
Heresy's the
humans in
question.
chat.
Fire is the answer.
I think it was Kierkegaard who said that if we found ourselves in paradise, we'd smash it just so that something interesting would happen.
I probably would.
I have lost.
He said at one point that he viewed his life's work as making it tougher for everyone because things were getting too easy.
No, I mean, he isn't wrong, is he? Keith Lane says, I'm roasting a turkey. Don't get banned again. Well, I don't know. Dev did just say that the Indians weren't people a while ago. Glowy says, what makes human tool development better than animal tool is simply that humans can find the principles behind the mechanic of the tool and develop them into something more. Also, many animals' examples of tool use is instinctive, thus not really thought out. Actually,
Well, yeah, but you can kind of see the logic chain there that'll eventually happen if given enough time, right? Like, monkey grabs a rock to break something. That can eventually turn into
you say
tool
given
use.
enough time, but hasn't the last few million years provided them with the opportunity to figure out larger rock?
Yes, that's what we are. We're the culmination of those efforts.
Dev, you little fucking communist.
We're the result of that. And here's the thing. Okay, if another species started showing like signs of intelligence, we would quash it.
Probably.
Because they would so yeah, we're the ones. We're the ones who figured it out.
There was a very funny little thing on this though. This is old. This is very old, mind you. This is from like original Avatar, but I think this fits in perfectly with the current discussion and the Indian question and the Great Spirit, etc. Spare us your pity, alien. You gush about your connection with nature, your primal wisdom, but what has it brought you? Where are your marvels of engineering, your voyages of discovery, your great insight into the nature of the universe? Even at your basest, when we dressed as you, dwelt as you do, hunted as you do, lived as you do, we did more than
Heresy's
merely
the question.
survive.
Fire is the answer.
We built wonders. We made great journeys. We forged epics you have not. You speak so proudly of the plugs dangling from your skulls, little realizing that they are but strings and you the puppets. What little you have accomplished you attribute to the wisdom of your goddess, who is nothing but the voices of your dead, echoing for all eternity. She moors you to the past, serving as a leash that keeps you as little better than apes. Sad parodies of civilization that lack that special spark to become something more. We have come to your world in search of resources. Whether your actions drive us back or we take what we want and move on, the outcome is the same. We will depart from your wretched planet, leaving you behind, and in 1,000 years you will not have changed from this contact with another world. You will remain in your trees, hunting your prey, communing with your goddess until your sun burns out and your world dies. And above your tomb, the stars will belong to us.
I remember seeing that, and
It's
I
good.
realized it's not actually from the movie. It's
No.
it's a fan thing. I think there was a story. In fact, wasn't it Avatar crossed with Warhammer? Some
Maybe.
story.
Like it's a great fucking. It should have been in the movie.
Yeah, I think someone wrote they wrote a fanfic where Avatar is in the Warhammer, like very early in the Warhammer universe. In the
Maybe.
in the timeline. And this is kind of like the attitude of humanity at that point before all the Warhammer behavior happen, or all the Warhammer events happen. So, yeah, this fits.
Yep. This is a great little screed too. It's a little bit too wordy. It's got a little bit too many things. Then it could need a little bit of slimming, a little bit of trimming. But that end quote is brilliant, though. And
Service
then we
guarantees
return to the
citizenship.
Native Americans. Are they right?
Do I? Well, I mean, I am like a little bit native myself, and the answer is I definitely prefer having video games than living in a teepee. So, Hey, wait, hold on. Does that mean that if you have sex with native people, it's bestiality?
According to that Indian woman's logic, presumably.
Yeah, I guess. Huh?
Though just because they're not, by their definition human, doesn't mean they're beasts, so. Glowy says, if we do find everything about a brain that still doesn't eliminate the possibility of a soul. It could be the soul is on another dimension field than the body. It operates and the brain is like a keyboard or mouse, take away some parts changes how we use it. Possibly, but now we're getting like, okay, now we're going to have to prove that other dimensions exist. Which I hope they do. I hope there are other dimensions which are better than this one, in which Rings of Power was never made. That would be a good dimension. Lives in Dev's Walls specifically says, alternative, would you put your enemy in the box? God no, he'd have fun in there.
So, yeah, if you wouldn't put your enemy in the box, then why wouldn't you go in?
Just because I don't want my enemy to have fun doesn't mean that I wish to live in the cyberpunk dystopia. Plus...
No, dystopia if it's perfect, though.
Maybe I wanted to go in the box, Dev. Have you considered that? Maybe the box is a box of my making. Maybe I created the box.
Did you vote yes?
Maybe I made the box, Dev.
Did you vote yes, though, in your own poll?
Maybe the box is something that I have made for something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I own all the boxes. And we'll be getting a royalty from the 35% who said yes. Death End says, Nintendo will just buy Unity out if it's cheaper. Maybe. I mean, it's certainly dropping in price rather rapidly at the moment. Artemis Fowl says, Dev, once again, use the verbal sleight of hand and replacing the argument of evidence for proof. Dev, you demand proof. We are talking about evidence.
Oh, God. Listen, this is Artemis's autism bleeding through. When I say proof or when I say evidence, I'm not making a strict claim about either definition. I'm just talking off the cuff.
Marksman of 117B says, gender is like the two towers. There used to be two of them, but now it's a sensitive topic that can get you in trouble when you ask what went wrong. That's true.
Hold on, wait a second. Didn't at least 3 towers fall in 9/11?
Yes, but we forget about the third one because it's not that important.
I mean, that sounds like alternative genders to me. We forget about them when they're not that important. But they're still there.
It's okay to blow them up and nobody will care?
Yeah, probably.
Eric Just says, Dev, can you persuading Arch that the disbanding of the Kalmar Union was a mistake, and Norway should once again be ruled by Denmark, and persuade Sargon that Great Britain should once again be ruled by the Danes?
I have no clue what any of this is, sorry.
The Kalmar Union was a human rights violation, and will be revenged.
Is it? Oh.
Red Pilled Normie donates 50 dollars.
Heresy's the
I
question.
don't know what that is.
Fire is
There
the
is no
answer.
message, so thank you. Gabriel Nortea says, does it matter if everything inside the box is not real if I perceive it as real? What do you mean by it's not real? Am I immersed in the box? Oh yeah, no, the box is perfect. The box has no flaws. You know the box is not real. You specifically know that what is in there isn't real because you entered the box, but everything in there feels perfectly real. Like the box is a perfect piece of technology. Maranga 2 says, there were other species of Homo, such as Floridenesians and Denisovan, among others. We just know very little of them because there are few remains. So they weren't very successful then.
Yeah, it seems like once humans got as smart as they did, they outperformed everyone else in that niche. And we became the big brains of our planet.
Artemis Fowl says, to be clear, whales and dolphins are hyper-intelligent and use tools and physics to hunt prey. Whales universally treat humans with respect. And that's why we stopped killing them. At least for a bit.
At least for a bit.
Dracus Luthor says, Metatron today released a video about the Garden of Eden, and he actually touched on both the human soul and alternate pre-human species. Metatron? Dev, help?
No idea.
Glowy says, the assumption that you will live long in current era seems to exclude Maid. Soon Canada will have a short lifespan and shorter lifespan in the Middle Ages. Maybe.
No, that's not true. That's not true. As bad as Maid is, we are nowhere near the point of like forced Maid.
Glowy says,
once you turn 60, you will just be killed. No, we're not anywhere close to that. Still pretty bad though.
Why would ill-intelligent life be exclusive to land masses? Majority of biomass on planet is in the ocean. Why haven't the oceans created mermaids already, or intelligent life? I mean, look at the octopus. Why hasn't it gone the extra mile? Oh, that's a good question. I would imagine that it's more difficult to, I don't know, gather
Service guarantees
resources
citizenship.
in the ocean, I guess. I don't know.
I think the big reason is basically because humans
Heresies
we
Have
were
a
our
soul.
own
Fire
evolutionary
is the answer.
we were our own evolutionary pressure, right? So usually in terms of evolutionary pressure, it's the environment or it's other species that are hunting you or whatever the case may be. But humans, we got smart enough that we began to fight each other, and we began to do so using like rudimentary
You're adopting the based
sticks and
Archian
rocks.
ideal that warfare was humanity's greatest invention. I do
It pretty
approve.
much was. It pretty much was.
I do
right?
approve. Though I will posit there are actually a fair few insect
Heresy's the
species that have
question.
also evolved
Fire is the
warfare, and they
answer.
don't seem to be interested in, getting any smarter either.
Getting smart. Well, yeah, but in terms of like you take an animal with a reasonably intelligent brain, and then you pit them against each other and make it so that smarts, innovation is what causes one of them to die and one of them to live. The innovation generally being picking up a rock or a stick. You do that for a few million years, and you'll probably have a pretty intelligent species.
See, there are some interesting things around this though, which are a little bit cute. So
Heresies
the giant
Fire is the
hornet or
answer.
the killer hornet, you've probably seen those, right? The enormous motherfuckers.
Yep.
Yeah. They're spreading like everywhere now. They recently came to Norway. In fact, we saw one where I live. We swiftly beat it to death, and we haven't seen any else, so it was probably just like on a long trip or something. But these things are
Hopefully.
awful. Like, they are enormous. And they're dangerous as fuck, too, because they're just little monsters. But one of the biggest dangers to us as humans isn't them like stinging us or anything nonsense like that. It's actually the fact that they keep fucking wiping out bees and like honey producing insects because they're just so fucking big and powerful in comparison. But recently, something very, very fascinating happened, and that was that bees. You might have heard of this. They started figuring out that once one of the hornet scouts came to their base, normally it would just start killing all of them because it was just so much bigger, so much more powerful, right? But the bees figured out that if they surrounded the wasp, buried it in their bodies, then started vibrating and beating their wings, they could actually create a temperature at the heart of the ball high enough to kill the hornet.
Yep, I think I recall seeing the video on this. You can watch him do it, yeah.
Yeah, now that suggests some level of intelligence, doesn't it? How the fuck did they figure this out? Because this isn't an instinctual reaction. Because the giant hornets, like, murdering the fuck out of honeybees is a relatively recent reaction. So this isn't some, like, 10,000-year-old instinct. This is something the little fuckers figured out by themselves.
Is there anything else they do that behavior for, I wonder?
I mean, yeah, they are. Like, they are hive insects, so they already have a very high degree of coordination on everything they do. But, again, it's a very large leap from coordination, like flying over there, picking up pollen over there, to, hey, if we shake our butts, it creates heat, and that heat will cook our enemy to death.
I have lost shit.
That is a very interesting thing. That's a very interesting little thing.
I'm gonna take a quick here. Yeah, 'cause I wonder if for example, like bees will do this for other reasons and they just adapted the same impulse, right? Because like you could see maybe they keep their young warm in the same way, something like that. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
I would imagine they might do, because I mean bees like live inside their hives through winter and shit. So I'm presuming they have some way of providing heat.
Keeping it warm in there, yeah. It's gotta be because it's gonna be cold in there otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah, but even then, like,
There's probably something
okay,
going on.
it's the same as looking at your heater in your room and going, I could turn that into a flamethrower if I built enough of them. Like, technically, yes.
Well, you could, yeah. You could.
It's very, very interesting. Right, we've covered National Geographics today as well. Right, so we've arrived at the last of the Super Chats for the Unity question, so I guess we should finally move on to topic number 2, our only second topic of today. Which
Really?
is...
There's only 2?
Well, there's a little... Okay, right now we can do a little side topic first, because this one's a very short one.
I have lost.
See if we can
Well,
find it.
actually, I've got to go to the washroom, so you might as well read some more of the Super Chats anyway. I'll be back in a minute.
God damn it, Fatso. Let's see, where the...
I have lost.
did I
Shit.
put it? Where did I put it? Where did I put it, chat? Chat, help. Okay, I got 3 monitors, and that makes it easier to arrange stuff, but I still get stuff lost, so clearly the answer is 4 monitors. I'll try and dig it up again. There we go, that one's a good one. Let's close some of these other gosh darn tabs as well. As anyone who's living in California is about to have their taxpayers used to feed their enemies. Congratulations, Californians. McWall11 says, +20 for artist poetry, our Lord and Saviour. Thank you very much, sir. And McWall11 says, my use of servers and dev tools is instinctual too. Shadow Sage says, looks like dev need to look into the lack of ape language development. Well, seriously, well, they do communicate, don't they? Like grunts or butt pinches or something. I don't fucking know. Smells, farts, meh. I'm presuming they communicate through some sort of body odor. Marksman117B says, Dev, I sent you the tweet about the pirating. Discord name is Gentle Marksman. I also sent you a cameo Rachel Dolezal did for 4chan. 4chan. Show Arch. I do know if Arch wants to be shown. That might be a little bit risque. McCall11 says, we hail as monkeys were made by adversity. Boxtopia goes against our nature. Box can be switched off outside my control, probably by Arch. Only if you fail to pay your boxing fees, though. Like, I am not an unreasonable human being. The box will only go off if you fail to pay the ever-increasing number of fees. Alternatively, if there's a, interruption in services. It happens. Boog says, Logan's run get closer and closer, Maple Sucker. MW Balls. There are 2 options, Dev, straight and gay. Gay simply has an ever-expanding list of flavors. I see. I tend to agree. Dev is but a straight person with extra steps who has convinced himself that he is very, very special, and we should shame him for this. We should. There is no reason for him to be so weird.
Hold on. Straight person with extra steps. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, you just want to be special, Dev, which is why you attach various labels to yourself.
But I've actually done stuff with other males.
Yep, you're confused.
Wait. So hold on. I can do sexual things with other males and be considered straight?
Yep, you're just weird. Like 10 years from now, you'll be rocking in a corner somewhere in fetal position.
Is that how it works?
I have
Yep.
lost.
Hold on. Arch, are you coming out on the side of fucking trans women isn't gay?
Listen, Dev. Everyone's a mental disease in my book.
Is Arch? I want this to be clear. Are you coming out saying that trans women are in fact women?
They are, in fact, men. They're just confused. See, Dev, this is why the lifespan of homosexuals is lower than that of regular men, okay? You know why? Because they're confused.
Because of all the AIDS. It's because of all the AIDS.
It's because they're confused, Dev. And years later, they go like, oh, I was actually straight. What have I done to myself?
So, here's the thing. I go 100% by old Greek sexuality There is no straight or gay. There's only top or bottom. That's how it is.
What's your position on incest? Because that's very important in the Greek context.
Oh, is it?
Oh, yes.
I'm not interested. No,
Oh.
none of that help
So
me step bro porn.
You're only
that.
partially Greek then.
Mm.
Right, so the second little break topic. So the strikes, the Actors Guild strike is of course still ongoing because the studios are never going to pay them ever. It's just how it is.
Yep.
But now, California, the state
Heresy's
senate or
the
whatever,
question.
has passed
Fire
a
is
bill
the
that
answer.
gives striking workers unemployment benefits. What's
Well, I mean, I guess they are unemployed, but doesn't the union
they're
pay
not,
them?
Dev. That's exactly the thing. They're not unemployed. This is why normally you don't get unemployment benefits when you're striking. Because you have a job, you are simply choosing to not attend it.
I don't think that's quite how it is legally. I think what
Oh,
it is.
It is. That is how the law was. This is a change to the law.
Okay. Well, but from what I remember, at least maybe it's different in the States. Here, when you strike, your union becomes your employer, and your union will pay you a wage, and the job that you attend is going to the picket line. That's why you can't skip going to the picket line, because it is your job.
Yes, but that too is a job, so you're not unemployed. And that's how it works here in Norway as well, although slightly differently. Here you are paid not to work as a exception to the usual rules. It's basically it's a legal right to go on strike.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you are not unemployed. And here's the thing too. These unemployment benefits, of course, they don't spring out of thin air. This is the taxpayer money being used to pay striking actors and writers now.
Yeah, that's a bit much, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. I want to point out as well, this goes to everybody in the union. So you see often the argument, right? The rich person, the famous person goes on TV and goes like, it's not for me we're doing this, it's for everybody else. Well, none of them are accusing themselves of any benefits. None of them are saying like, oh, I won't get paid better, I won't get better royalties or anything like that. So in essence, whilst this will help, quote unquote, a lot of the people who aren't earning a whole lot and should probably just fucking stop and work at McDonald's like they were always intended to do, this means that your money will be given to ridiculously rich actors and writers as well. Your taxpayer money will be used to pay a man who lives in a mansion larger than your entire fucking neighborhood.
Yep. Well, yes, it'll also go to the writers who don't live in large mansions, but most of them suck, so I don't care.
Well, that's exactly the thing, too, because their entire argument is like, oh, we deserve a fair wage. Do you? Does anyone want to hire you? No? Well,
Yeah,
shit.
it sounds like you have a fair wage.
Yeah. Your fair wage is garbage. Why? Because you produce garbage.
Yep.
See, that's the problem. This is one of the issues with, that's going to be an issue with social media eventually as well, now that more and more social media platforms are starting to pay people, with like Twitter, X, for example. You're going to eventually see people use this as an argument for universal income. I call it now. I'm probably 5 years ahead of time here. But that's going to happen. Where people go like, well, that guy over there gets paid for just being on Twitter all day. That's unfair. He's not doing anything. The same will be gone for us. Like, it's the argument of like 10 years ago, where it's like, oh, YouTube's not a real job. Now people kind of accept that YouTube is a real job because of the sheer amount of fucking stuff you need to put into it, and amount of effort, etc. But their argument, the striking actors and writers, are basically, yeah, nobody wants to hire us, we suck, we can't get a job by our own, we aren't talented, and we should be flipping burgers, but my dream. Pay me for my dream, Dev.
Yeah, I mean, the difference obviously is that people want to watch the YouTubers that are successful. That's why they get hits, right?
Yes.
Like, if these writers truly were talented writers, I mean, they still have industry connections. They have a name they've made for themselves. They can go like write a book and publish it and make some money. They can go work on YouTube, you know? Like there's there's other avenues. The fact that they're not capable of doing anything else is what matters. Is that they're just not good writers. Because if they were, they'd be writing something else. They'd be making money.
They would. That is the difference. Like if you manage to make something of yourself on YouTube, on social media, that is quite a lot of effort. That is quite a lot of luck and skill as well to be able to make a living out of talking into a microphone about Californians ripping off the state. Whereas writing piece of shit garbage television that nobody watches and then complaining that you weren't paid enough for the thing you made that actually cost the studio money is the exact opposite. Now, this isn't law just yet, mind you, because it will head to Governor Gavin Newsom, who will have to sign it into law or veto it, one or the other. So, if anyone here is from California, your taxpayer money is safe for at least a short while longer, and thereafter it will go straight into the bank account of, I don't know, Beyonce or something. I don't know. Are there celebrities? I have not paid attention to celebrity shit in like a decade.
Yeah, same. I just don't give a fuck about it. There is this underlying idea that is becoming more and more prevalent as socialism becomes more popular, or at least what young people think socialism is.
Hold on, Dave. Hold on a second.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. What's up?
I'm just looking up a communist flag waving gif because I think we've got one of your.
Oh, god damn it. Okay. Anyway, as socialism becomes more popular among young people, there's this belief that what you create should not somehow be linked with what you get paid. So it doesn't. So like they don't. So they're going full on labor theory of value. If you put hours into a product, you should get paid X number of hours it was, whether or not that product is actually profitable. And that idea is starting to become more popular. It's super fucking retarded, and I do not agree with it whatsoever. So Arch, take the communist flag down. But it is becoming more popular, and people are starting to think this way, as stupid as it is. And that's probably what's driving a lot of this.
All right. Za Rodina. I need to get one of those little stream deck thingies, and I need to find like a good communist flag somewhere that I can put on screen. I really need to get this done. It's important.
Oh man, stream decks are actually really handy. Just to have like a bunch of pre-programmed buttons you can push to bring things up in OBS, it's really nice.
Yep. I need one. And I need somebody to draw me a well-animated Soviet flag.
I have lost.
Maybe something also that plays like a copyrighted version, a non-copyrighted version of their national anthem on really low. But right, the small little side topic aside, have you heard about a comic book called Fables?
No, I have not. When you said Fables, I thought you meant the video game.
No.
The game Fable?
Yes, I mean no, I don't mean it. I mean Fables, not Fable.
Nope. No clue.
So, apparently, this is a relatively big deal, apparently. I haven't been paying attention to comics either. Now, I know actually there's a lot of good comics out there that aren't associated with any of the mainstream media stuff, like independent released stuff, right? That's actually quite good. The French, in particular, apparently produce a lot of excellent stuff. But I have not been paying attention for years and years and years. But Fables is apparently a setting where all of the various fairy tale stuff comes alive. So you've got like Little Red Riding Hood and stuff all together in the modern world, and they need to hide from the modern world who wouldn't accept them. Yeah.
Okay, hold on. I think I know what this is. And it's because that's right. Okay. Here's how I know what you're talking about. Because the Telltale game Wolf Among Us takes place in this universe.
Aha.
Have you played Wolf Among Us?
I have not.
So Telltale did The Walking Dead, and
Yep.
like season 1 was beloved, season 2 is like mid, and then season 3 and 4 were terrible. And I mean, the reason for that, this isn't a Telltale stream. There's 18 hours of deep lore on Telltale, but the TLDR of it is the story that you've all heard before. All right, the company got really popular. The low-level people in the company became very woke. The upper-level people at the company began micromanaging the creative aspect of the development, and they wasted all of their money. They took on way too many projects. They grew too quickly, too fast, and they completely fell apart. So they went bankrupt, and now they've been revived by a small team, and hopefully they're going to work out. But Telltale, its most famous property was The Walking Dead. And then its second most famous property was Wolf Among Us. And Wolf Among Us, basically, the idea is, as you said, Arch, it's there's an alternate universe where all of the various fables and stories are true, right? So you have, as you said, Little Red Riding Hood and the Big Bad Wolf, and then you have the Queen of Hearts and Alice in Wonderland, and you have a whole bunch of their fables. But like their world, I think, collapsed. Like their dimension got destroyed, so they all evacuated into our world, and now they live in one magically warded section of, I think it's New York. There's like a section they've kind of like, how in Harry Potter you see like the buildings fold in so that humans can't see it. It's like that. There's like a magically warded section where all the fable characters live. And in Wolf Among Us, you are the big bad wolf, and you're also the policeman for this ward of New York City, and you're trying to solve a murder. It was a great game, amazing game. Go play Wolf Among Us. It's one of the few really good Telltale games. But I'm outlining all this because it takes place in the Fables universe. Now that you've brought it up, Arch, I know what you're talking about.
All right. Well, the creator of the Fables universe, Bill Willingham, elected to make the universe public domain.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Well, why? Dev, couldn't he just be a nice guy who wanted everyone to share in his success?
I mean, to be fair,
No.
that's why Gabe's doing it with Steam, right? Like he's saying, yes, you can just the games are yours, whether or not they actually are,
Mm-hmm. Well, he did this stating that he had a dispute with DC, so DC Comics. He explains that when he first entered into the agreement with DC Comics, there were good people on the other side of the table who understood what he was doing, understood what he was dealing with, and they were willing to work with him, to make a good, fair deal for everyone, make sure that his universe was taken care of.
Yeah.
That changed. To the point that now it's simply a revolving door, and there's new people all the time who's in contact with them. None of them seems to know what's going on, and they get worse and worse. Like every new crop of people want to micromanage his universe more, wants to exploit it more, wants to make more stuff out of it, etc., etc. And since he says, since I can't afford to sue DC to force them to live up to the letter and the spirit of our long-time agreement, since even winning such a suit would take a ridiculous amount of money out of my pocket and years out of my life, I've decided to take a different approach and fight them in a different arena, inspired of the principles of asymmetric warfare. And that's why he made it public domain. So now, anyone and everyone can theoretically make comics set in the Fable universe, can make Fable merchandise, can make Fable TV shows, movies, games, whatever they want, because it's public domain.
That's actually pretty funny because a few years ago, let me see if I can find this real quick. I'm going to do a quick search. News. Okay, avoid crunch. Okay. So, that's right. So basically, one of the big obstacles to making Wolf Among Us 2 for a long time was licensing. because after the collapse of like DC didn't really approve of Wolf Among Us 1, but it was a separate deal. So but like there was some legal obstacles they had to overcome. And then with Telltale going bankrupt, the possibility of Wolf Among Us 2 was basically a long shot. And then it was announced like out of nowhere, I think 2 years ago now. It was announced out of nowhere. And they said, listen, we finally all came together. It took a long time and a lot of effort and a lot of money, but we hammered out an agreement so you can finally make Wolf Among Us 2 because we know the fans really want to see it. And I'm just thinking now, like, wow, you spent all that time getting that deal together and you could have just waited and now it's public domain. You can just do it. It's like, oh, well, oops.
Well, they might not have waited in vain just yet, as DC also announces that they will fight the release of the property to the public domain.
Really? Oh, yeah. I mean, I
Yes.
guess it makes sense. Yeah, I guess they want to keep the IP, don't they?
Yes, they are now arguing that they actually own the IP because they made comics and stuff in it. So since they produced content for it, they argue that Bill Williams' claim on the IP is actually outdated and that he doesn't own his own fucking universe anymore, but they do.
But that's like saying that couldn't Telltale make the same statement that because they made a game, they own the IP?
Yes, they could. In fact, this is the Disney argument. Disney argues that it owns Snow White because it's Disney's version of Snow White.
Oh,
So
okay.
they are going to
Right,
argue
right.
that they own Fables because it's their version of Fables.
And so they own all the Fables?
Yep.
Here, let me check something out here.
So this is going to be an interesting legal battle, if anything, as the writer himself has stated emphatically that in the contract, he owns the IP. Now, we don't know what the contract looks like, so maybe he's lying, maybe he's simply mistaken, it's possible, but he claims he owns the IP. And, I mean, he would have been a massive fucking idiot to sign over the IP rights to the studio, so presumably.
Yeah, there's no way.
There's no way.
He must have just like cut some sort of publishing deal or something.
Yeah, that would seem far more reasonable. But as DC is now saying that they will take any and all necessary step to retain the IP which they believe to be their property. DC reserves all rights and will take such actions as DC demands necessary or appropriate to protect its intellectual property rights. This is like one of those just asshole things, right? They're just fucking annoys me. There was have you seen the game on Steam, Dune Spice Wars?
I have not.
Well, it takes place in Frank Herbert's universe, Dune, obviously, and it has previously race-swapped one of the biggest and most important characters in the game, who was a white man, and they made him into a black woman, as you always do in these cases.
Is she at least cute?
No, not
You
really.
have that. Oh, okay, well.
Um,
It's like I understand everyone hates it, but it's kind of excusable if the character's hot.
And recently, they did it again, where they race and gender swapped another house from Frank Herbert's Dune. And to me, it just comes across as unbelievably disrespectful. Like, here you are. You are monetizing somebody else's universe. You are taking somebody else's work. You are taking somebody else's life effort, their dreams and their passion. And you're going, nah, I own this now. I'm going to do whatever I want to now with your thing. In the most cynical current year thing possible. Like, is that not the worst thing you could possibly do to a creative individual? Like, imagine if in a year's time from now, Dev, like somebody just goes like, no, I own your channel. Like, I own your trademark. I own your content, your videos, all of the stuff you worked on. That's mine now.
Just out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So, wait, what was the legal argument that the guys making the Dune game even gave? I mean, because Dune's not public domain. It's not old enough to be public domain yet.
Dune, I think it's licensed,
Yeah.
but clearly with some very, 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 very obvious freedoms. Actually, no, it might be public domain. Yep, copyright protection for Dune expired in 2021.
Really?
So
Well, hold on.
I don't know if it's public domain, but it's at the very least no longer copyrighted.
Yeah, Dune's not that old. Because
It's fairly from the 1960s.
Well, yeah, but like, copyright, it's 70 years after the creator dies, isn't it?
Well, not back then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but back
Then how does
then,
Disney keep getting away with holding on to all their old copyrights and having them updated?
because Disney keeps changing the legal side of things. They just keep changing the literal law. Originally, you were supposed to own the copyright for 28 years. And then you could renew it for another 28 years. That was the original legal system. Now it's like, I think it's like 100 years after the death of the creator or something absurd like that.
It's 70 years after the death of the creator.
There you go.
But yeah, like I'm looking at Dune, and I mean, the guy died in 86. It hasn't been 70 years yet. Surely the estate of whoever it was that wrote, Frank Herbert, surely his estate still retains the copyright to Dune and for another, what is it, 86, like 20, 30 years?
Possibly. If they do, they're not enforcing the rules of the universe. Because the thing is,
That's
too,
true.
of course, this is them doing what Disney does. This is them going, hey, we're going to take your thing, and we're going to change it, and now it's our thing. Like, this is now legal precedence, because Disney has gotten away with it. Disney was the first to do this, where they took lots of Brothers Grimm's fairy tales, and then just claimed the copyright for them, because they'd transformed them.
Yeah, of their iteration, right? Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with American McGee's Alice.
Yes.
Which is, by the way, is really funny because American McGee doesn't actually own American McGee's Alice. EA does. It's just that American McGee was working for EA when he made the Alice games.
Yep.
Which is, so it's like, oh, okay, all right. But yeah, like I looked it up. I decided to go back into the archive of history. Published in 2011. Telltale's first Fables episode due out in Q1 2012, and it credits Bill Willingham. So I mean, in terms of what Telltale worked on, their deal wasn't with DC; it was with the original creator.
With him directly.
Yeah. So I have no idea how DC is gonna turn around and say this is ours. Like, it seems unreal that they'd even try it.
Well, who knows? Like, because right now it seems to be a disagreement over contractual interrogation, interpretation, I would suppose. So the author interprets it that they own the IP. Obviously, because it's theirs, unless they've signed it over. Right? Whilst DC interprets it as they actually do own the IP, because they've published it. And according to the author, he cannot legally publish anything himself anymore, because that is in his contract with DC. That's why he's making it public domain. He cannot make merchandise or games or comics or anything like that, because he's tied in with DC. But he also then argues that everybody else, of course, they haven't signed any contracts with DC, and thus they obviously would not be bound by the terms of his agreements with DC.
Here, check this out. I decided to take a quick look. Whenever you see a Fables comic or like a book or
Heresy's the
something,
question.
it
Fire
says
is the
copyright
answer.
2014, whatever year it is, Bill Willingham and DC Comics. All characters featured in this issue, the distinctive likenesses thereof and related elements are trademarks of Bill Willingham. So,
Bill Willingham, then little thing. Vertigo is a trademark of DC Comic. Characters and inclusion mentioned in the mangas are entirely fictional. These comics does not read or accept unsolicited submission of a Yep.
so it seems like even on their own published works, they're admitting that Bill Willingham owns the ultimate trademark here.
Yep. I don't know. Like, I'd be very surprised if they had a real case here because, well, their arguments would then probably be, again, the Disney argument. So it's like, okay, but we made an interpretation of them, therefore this interpretation is ours?
Yeah, but isn't it like it's Bill Willingham's interpretation of Fables, though, of like various Fable characters?
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like a long shot argument, honestly.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, here's the copyright filing. Copyright claimant Bill Willingham, but the address that is DC Comics, but it's Bill Willingham's name. That's strange.
CO Donkeys, Broadway, New York, United States, DC Comic. Transfer by written agreement. States.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, what is this? Is this like a transfer of ownership? Because maybe he fucked himself in another signing. Like did he? Is this? I don't know what this is. Is this him transferring the ownership to DC?
Well, no, I think it just copyright claimants.
Mm.
Transfer by written agreement. Transfer by written agreement. I think. Transfer by written agreement. Address is Broadway, New York. Address. I don't know. I don't think so. I think that might be just like, copyrights are registered here and here. Like
Heresy's
send
the
mail
question.
here.
Fire is the answer.
I don't know.
Yeah, I guess we just have to wait and see what comes out of this because maybe the contract gets leaked and there's some information in there that'll shed some light on it.
Yep. Because this is it's a very interesting move. Because I haven't heard about Fables at all, but this is apparently a pretty big deal. So this would make it one of the first, if not damn near the only, big things that actually gets properly released into the mainstream as public domain. As of course every other company has been fighting tooth, nail, claw, and legal advisor against any release of anything.
So the reason that this is a big deal is because we all know that there's been a it's kind of waned, but not really because The Boys is still popular. But there's been in the past decade or so, or decade and a half, there's been a massive upsurge in properties that look like they're for children, but they're actually like grim, dark, and gritty, and they're made for adults, right? And The Boys is one of those, and Fables is another one of those, which is one of the big reasons why Wolf Among Us was so ridiculously popular. So the fact that like this is one of those things that kind of exists in the millennial cultural zeitgeist that people know and say, "Oh, I know what that is," and they appreciate it and they care about the property, right? It's one of those things. So yeah, it's interesting. I guess we have to wait and see where it goes.
It's also one of those instances, though, where if DC managed to pull something off here, it will be the death of another author, won't it? It's like somebody made this thing. They spent years of their life making this thing. It's a big, huge passion project. And then some corporation just moves in and goes, mine now.
Yep. Because he signed a deal with the devil, he doesn't get to own his own property anymore, his own story.
And the devil now gets to bend him over and fuck him.
Heresy's the question. Fire is the answer.
Modern copyright law. It's lovely,
When
isn't
did
it?
when did he start? Okay. Oh, he was a illustrator for tabletop RPGs for a while. Cover artist for AD&D player character Against the Giants, Secret of Bone Hill. Okay, so he's done like a bunch of nerdy things.
He was also, according to
start
chat,
Fables?
the author of an erotic novel called Ironwood.
Oh, he was in the 1990s. What the fuck is Ironwood?
I mean, to be fair, if I was going to write an erotic novel, I think Ironwood would be a pretty good name. You know, it tells the story, shall we say.
Ironwood follows the adventures of Dave Dragavon, a juvenile dragon who only exists in human form, who is hired by the beautiful Pandora Breedleswite to find the wizard Narek in order to free her from a curse.
That
And
does
he
sound
does it.
erotic in nature, yes?
He does it with a lot of sex.
Of course.
So he started in the early 2000s making the Fables series, and I think basically he wanted to distribute it, so he signed with Vertigo, and then DC bought Vertigo.
And now
that's
his
the
ass
story it
is in a
looked like.
sling.
Yep, that's how it works. R.I.P.
R.I.P. IP.
And you know what? Like, I'm sure this happens with really minor properties that no one really cares about, so you don't really hear
All
about it,
the
right? Like,
time.
if a property has no fans, you're not going to see a fan outcry if something gets taken over by a company. But this is one of those things. Here, you know what this is like? This is like if the publisher, who like the original author of The Boys, the comic, just had everything bought out from under him through legal trickery by Amazon because Amazon makes the show, right? And then he just loses complete control of his IP. That's kind of the equivalent of what's happening here.
Well, what's kind of interesting is what he says as well. Like, I can't afford to sue DC. There's a bit of a important point in this, isn't it? Because as you said, this probably happens all the time to smaller authors, simply because the company goes, hey, we kind of like your thing here. Like, oh, thank you. Like, I think we want to have this thing. And I was like, what? Hold on. Like, it's mine, though. Is it? Like, look, we've already printed it. It's already out of here. What are you going to do? Like, sue us?
It's like, you already signed the contract where we printed the first dozen episodes, and then you didn't notice that in the fine print it says we own it now, so fuck you.
Yeah. And like, what are you going to do? You're going to argue? Okay, we'll take it to court. Hope you've got 7 years of your life. That is the problem.
Yep, that does seem to be where we're going. But, okay.
The power of infinite lawyers.
Yeah, I think it's because it's like a mid-level property, right? It's famous enough that everyone knows everyone knows Wolf Among Us. It's a really famous game, but it's not so big that that the person who owns it can actually fight off getting fucked. This isn't a Disney or a Nintendo or anything.
Yep. Well, I'm looking forward to see how that works out, because it would be nice to see more public property, because there ain't exactly a whole lot of it. Not a growth industry, shall we say. Right.
You know, when you said
What I said...
we were talking about comics today, and I had no clue what Fables was, because I don't know. I know Wolf Among Us, right? So I didn't know that that's what the topic was. There's another comic-related controversy that happened 3 or 4 days ago. I thought we were going to talk about that one.
Oh, what was that?
Okay, so you know what webtoons are?
No.
Okay, so online comic strips like Penny Arcade, they're from like the early 2000s, right? Like those that kind of content, where it's just like, oh, I have an internet comic,
I think
one
Boob
of those
sent me
things.
something about this. Is this about to feature the N-word?
It is about to feature the N-word.
Yes. Yes, I did see that.
Okay, so basically, there's a company that runs a website called Webtoons, and it's basically like a centralized place where you can get all of your webcomics. So back when I was a kid, Mega Tokyo had a website, and Penny Arcade had a website, and Fanboys Online had a website, and who else? Like Control Alt Delete had a website, and they all had their own websites, and you would check each person's site to see what web comics you liked. Well, now you have webtoons.com where every comic is, because that's how the internet goes nowadays. You don't have forums, everything's on Facebook. You don't have message boards, everything's on Twitter. That's just the internet, right? So the downsides of centralizing everything on the one site is that means there is one standard for what content is allowed on the site. And that obviously is so like if it was each community doing its own thing, well then each community has its own standards. Like some comics will not like edgy humor, and some will. And so you find the community that is good for you. But because it's all on webtoon.com, that means that it's all one standard. And because it's all one standard and it's a big site with a lot of money flowing through it, you know that standard is going to be more progressive than you or I would like. So I'm going to give you this here, Arch. Here, just take a look at these 4 panels from. They're all posted in this tweet. Just consider reading out these 4 panels.
No, I've seen the 4 panels. I know they're a strike.
They're a strike.
Indeed, I do. So the story that Dev so laboriously tries to drag himself towards is that there was one of these, a manhwa, which is a Korean manga. As this site seems to specialize in Korean manhwa, as far as I can see. I've got
There's
the
a lot of
Webtoon
Korean
site
stuff,
up.
but it's not universally. Yeah.
Lookism is a very fucked up thing. I would highly recommend it because it'll scar you for life. This webtoon was called Get Schooled, and apparently it had an unofficial fan translation for it. This fan translation had a scene in it where a black person is rather aggressively referred to as some weird word that I just don't understand, frankly. I've never seen it before, and I certainly will not utter it on any online platforms, of course.
Well, what letter does it start with, Arch?
Oh, who knows? Who knows these things, Dev? It's a difficult word.
How many letters are in the word, Arch?
Too many, Dev.
So the context basically is that there's a black student who is insulting a Korean student for being Korean, and he's using racial slurs towards him that revolve around the color yellow. Okay, and the Korean just goes, I've been called stuff like that quite a lot because I lived in East Harlem, and that area had particularly bad racism, especially racism from black students like yourself towards Asians. It was pretty bad. And then he says, "Here's how I counter them." And then he drops the N-bomb. And he does it with like a complete straight face, not a care in the world. And it's like, that's pretty based actually. That's really funny. If you're gonna have a bunch of black people be racist towards you, why not be racist back? But and also, by the way, this is a believable story. Okay, an Asian in Harlem, this is a believable story. But the issue is that okay, I know you're not going to put it up on screen, Archie. You don't have to. I'm looking at it right now. Even in the translation, they censor the slur. All right.
And the translation too, incidentally, is apparently not correct from what I've seen.
Oh no! What is the actual translation?
I don't know, but apparently the usage of le racial slur was not used in the original one. Apparently.
Oh really? See, when I saw this, I just thought of that. It's that meme from Invincible where it's like, look at what they need to mimic a fraction of our power, and it's like a bunch of random slurs, and then on the other side, it's just the N-word.
Yes.
So basically, even though this looks like it makes sense in terms of the story they're trying to tell, and it's realistic, and it's not even immoral considering the content he's talking about, like the story here. It caused a giant shit show because everyone who uses webtoons, they're all lefties, and so everyone freaked the fuck out. And here, Arch. Basic. Can I find this? Here we go. Okay, I'll post 2 things to you, Arch, in the link channel. The first one is Webtoons' official statement on what happened, if you want to read that.
The racist content has been removed from our platform. The series has been cancelled and will not be returning in the US, and also been suspended indefinitely from our Korean platform. While we conduct an internal review, it should never have been published, and we deeply apologize to anyone who encountered it. Racism or racist content have no place on Webtoon. Yes, as the point we still haven't made, incidentally, Dev, is that this Webtoon got yeeted off the internet so completely as to the point where it's not even allowed to be on the internet anymore. All platforms, all releases, everything.
Yeah, it's gone. And also because it was published on Webtoon, in much the same way as the last story, it is the property of Webtoon, not the original artist. So if the original artist decides to upload it somewhere else, they're violating Webtoon's IP. So if Webtoon wants to keep it hidden, they can do so. Yeah. I think Webtoon owns all the comics that you publish on it. So
That's scummy.
And also, here's the thing. So the last line is racism or racist content has no place on Webtoon. You know, you can write reasonable reasonable, moral tales about racism using in a comic book format, right? Where you show somebody be the victim of racism and you show how that's bad. You can have a good moral story here. But now you can't because it has no place on Webtoon. Of course, we all know that if the races are reversed, if say a white person was the victim, they wouldn't be having this kind of a reaction. That would be fine, obviously.
I would also point out that the series I mentioned earlier is Lookism, which now has a Netflix anime, by the way, which isn't bad. Lookism has rape, bullying, extreme bullying of the kind only Koreans can fucking come up with, murder, violence, full-on psychopathic characters. This manhwa is a trip and a fucking half. So all of that is fine. But don't you dare be racist.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to go hyper edgy with it, you can ask there's people who killed more people than the Nazis, right? What makes the Nazis so bad? Is it the racism? Okay. How racist do you have to be to offset the balance of killing a few extra million people? Like, it becomes ridiculous. Like, racism's bad, but I think we might hate it a disproportionate amount to how bad it should be.
You don't say.
Let's see here. Oh, also, of course, the people who actually made Get Schooled, they put out a long apology.
No, of course.
Because they're just giving in completely, pretty much. Yeah.
Trying to beg for some form of mercy. That'll probably work out just fine, yep.
Yeah, who knows? Probably not. Well, at the same time, they are in Korea, they're probably going to be as isolated as Japan is from some of this stuff, so maybe they just won't care.
Possibly.
I mean, something I talked about in my Final Fantasy 16 video today is that there was a backlash when Yoshi P said he wasn't putting black people in Final Fantasy 16 because it was supposed to be a European continent. Like, it wasn't Europe, it's a fantasy world, but it's the stand-in for Europe on this planet. So there wasn't going to be any black people here. There was white people of different ethnicities, and then in the south there were some Turkic people who were just coming in, right? So it's it makes sense in terms of the story that he wants to tell, but everyone in the West shat themselves over it because it was so uninclusive, and he basically just said, "That's not the story I'm telling," and he stayed the course, and then the game sold 3 million copies. So maybe because they're overseas, they can just kind of skate by in this a little bit easier than someone who lived in North America.
Possibly. There is also a little bit of a general turn away from this. There was the recent interview of the Danish actor, Mads Mikkelsen. You may have seen that. He was making a movie about Denmark, and people were like, why aren't there any black people? And he simply laughed.
Said, well, I assume it's historical Denmark, right?
Yes.
Because there might be a few black people in Denmark now, but not back then.
There were very few black people in Denmark in the 1750s.
God, I hate that shit. It's so annoying. Why isn't there black people? Because I don't want there to be. Because I'm writing a utopia. Just go full edgy with it.
Why not indeed?
What? Why are there no black people in your setting? Oh, because I'm writing something about the future. Just,
And
I
then
wanna
just
know
leave
how
it
far-
at that. Just walk
yeah,
away.
I want to know how far you could push.
It's like the meme from Rings of Power, where they juxtaposed Rings of Power with Lord of the Rings. And it's like, where did all the black people go, Elrond? And he just smiles.
Or oh god, I said that I sent this to Harry during the Lotus Eaters roundtable that happened last week or something. And I sent him this message because I wanted him to say it during the show, and he did. So that was pretty funny. But it's like, well, how come in the 1800s there's all these diverse peoples going to Hogwarts, but then how come by the movies in the 1990s it's all white people?
Service
What?
guarantees
Those are the
citizenship.
secrets of Dumbledore.
Those are the secrets of Dumbledore, yes.
What happened to all the people of color?
What happened to all the black elves?
Mm-hmm.
All the black people of Middle-earth? It's a mystery, I tell you. We might never know the true answer. Look at that. Dave.
I think that's all I have on the Webtoon story. I think that's pretty much it.
It's barely 1 a.m, and we're already more or less finished. Isn't this great?
We started an hour early. I don't even stream for another hour, Arch. You can't even raid me properly.
Well, sort of, kind of, maybe, possibly. I blame V's absence partially for today's short stream of a mere 3 hours.
Yeah,
Because
if
he
V were
wasn't
here,
here
we
to be like, hold on, robots have souls or something.
we would have argued something, I'm sure.
Glowy says, bees understand heat and how it can kill. They will vibrate in winter to stay warm and fan their wings when it's hot. Whenever bees fight, their temperature rises, so probably them knowing heat can kill and they can generate heat, they did this in response. Well, yeah, but the thing is, that is a logical thing. That is you thinking like, well, obviously, bees generate heat to cool and heat themselves, thus they must understand it can be used as a weapon. I don't know if I attribute that level of intelligence to a creature the size of my fucking pinky nail. It seems obvious to us, but I'm not so sure it's so obvious to them. PSU says, how fast do you think the government would come to confiscate your ship if you build the Stargate BC-304 battlecruiser in real world and none knew about it before you launched it? You stated a little. I am sure the government has already regulated spaceborne weaponry to some extent or other. Ethan Rogers says, Dev, get your trance in line. Tap's take was extra dumb and needs extra correction for it. Taps?
Wait, what's going on?
No. Taps. T-A-P-H-S.
Oh, Taftage.
Apparently, she had an extra dumb take.
Which take?
I don't know.
What's she doing?
You look at me like that. Glow in the Dark says, corpo money plus bribes plus lawyers equal corporate theft. Correction. Corporate acquisition. There's a difference.
Jesus Christ. I went to Taftage's Twitter to find the take, and it's all just porn. Jesus Christ.
Well, maybe that's the take. Pornography. Nicholas Van Neal says, morning all from Down Under. Not sure if you've heard of our referendum, I presume, to install an advisory Indigenous voice to Parliament. I haven't, but I do think you should have some Indigenous representation. Because having seen the original Indigenous population of your country, I want to see them in higher governance. Only because I fucking hate Australia, of course, but...
Oh, I found the take, Arch. You want to pull it up?
You just said it was full of porn.
Okay, I'll give you the tweet that doesn't have any porn.
You promise? You promise, Dev?
Yes.
Okay. In that case, I'll consider it.
There it is.
Service guarantees citizenship.
Let's see. Ah, the old Fubuki and what was the little one called? Hatsumaki. Hatsumaki.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I do think liking this stuff probably means you're a bit of a pedo. Ah, Dev, are we going to have the pedo argument again? I thought I yelled at you for that last week.
So basically, if you go all the way down through the quote retweets, Sock Done Left, who's actually a communist, as opposed to everyone calling me a communist fakely, he actually is one. He basically said that, without exaggeration, the face of modern
Fire is the
fascism
answer.
is lolly VTube rigs puppeted by 40-year-old incel VTubers. The fact that lolly spaces accommodate the far right shouldn't surprise anyone. If you've spent time in far right spaces before or just looked at 4chan, you've seen them filled with horrid shit like this. And I'm like, SDL, you're fucking retarded. I did my Gramsci video, and like the framing of that was how retarded SDL is. So I posted that picture of the girl who's 4'11". She's 4'11" tall. She's 22 years old, completely of age, but looks childish, right? And I said, remember when this cosplayer was shit on by leftoids because despite being of age, her existence promoted
Service
pedophilia?
guarantees
By the way,
citizenship.
that's actually what I heard some people say. Your existence promotes pedophilia. So if you are a petite woman, your existence promotes pedophilia. Okay, got it. So I said, listen, you guys are retarded. And then Taftaj said, I do think liking this stuff probably means you're a bit of a pedo. What do you think, Arch? If you like petite women who are of age, is that slightly pedophilic?
Was that slightly pedophilic? Like, I don't know if you're... Cause, see, this is the interesting thing about the pedophilia thing, right? Because I consider it a sexuality. So that's the problem. If it's a sexuality, then it's something you're innately born with, right? That's been the left's argument for God only knows how long. In which case, you're basically cursed. But are you attracted to the age of the person or the physical properties of the person? And if it is the physical properties of the person, and it's a person who's of age, I mean, by definition, that shouldn't be pedophilia, I would guess.
True. But also,
does
like,
your motivations matter, I suppose?
so here, imagine somebody who is, because this might not work for a full-blown, like, exclusively pedophilic person, but somebody who is, like, pedophile adjacent. You know, they have some tendencies, right? Now, they could fuck children, or they could get into a relationship with someone who is petite but of age, all right? What's better?
Well,
Obviously, the latter,
yes.
right? Anyway, that was Taftaj's take that apparently people didn't like.
Well, it is a silly take. Now, let's get this off screen before YouTube sees.
Oh yeah, she followed it up by saying that men are scary sometimes.
Sometimes, yes. Aquilis Voltaire says, what if we are already in the box and call it the universe? What if reality is what we would call heaven? Well, in that case, you've got nothing to lose by getting in the box.
I mean, there is some decent evidence that the entire universe is just a computer simulation.
Nicholas Van Niel says, fortunately, the polls are tracking for a big no win, but I skimmed an article today praising the Sami parliament, whatever it is. Thoughts? We do have a Sami parliament, yes. So,
Oh, Jesus. That sounds terrible.
the Sami are a bunch of so-called indigenous people of northern Norway. They arrived about 800 years after the Norwegians, but they're indigenous to northern Norway. Somehow. Square that circle.
It's because they live a primitive lifestyle. That's
Yes, that's why. They're primitives. That is actually why. And so, because we tried to make them Norwegians like 200 years ago, we had a thing called Norwegification, where we were like, okay, if you're going to attend school, you're going to have to do so in Norwegian, okay? You're going to have to speak Norwegian, you're going to have to behave like a Norwegian, because you live in fucking Norway. Which, god damn me, but was that not reasonable? And during this, We forced them to learn our language. We forced them to accept our culture and many other horrible things. At one point, there was even a uprising, a rebellion, where a bunch of Sami murdered a bunch of Norwegians running a bar because they were selling them alcohol. And the Sami simply couldn't stop themselves from drinking the alcohol, and as such we were assaulting them. And then we executed the criminals, and this was a great violation of the Sami people, apparently. My opinion of the Sami are not available for dispersal on YouTube. But we gave them a parliament. Now, fortunately, it has dicko power, and it's just a place to put them where they can whinge and complain and whine and yell and bitch, and then the rest of us can simply just fucking ignore them until eventually they'll be bred to extinction. That's the general plan.
Are you doing your part, Arch?
God, no. Like you said, Dev, some things become bestiality. War Turkify says, Webtoon, despite have rules against it, the Canva part of the site is littered with poorly hidden porn that advertises their uncensored versions. I mean, again, porn is not as bad as non-conformity, you know? Dean Domino 25 says, if you want to get really spicy, add black men in your series. Leave out black women and use that utopia line. Oof. Oof. Why are there no women's in your TV show? Well, it takes place in a better future. Sven Hallgren says, murder hornets are much bigger, but they are dumb. Well, that's good at least. And Gone the Dark says, bees could have discovered it when they dogpiled a wasp trying to sting it and accidentally killed it with heat. Sure, but then how did all of the other bees figure it out? Like, did they get on bee Twitter and go like, hey, check out this cool life hack, how not to get massacred? There must have been some sort of innate cleverness in the species, I think. Just God alone knows why they haven't used that cleverness to build spacecraft yet. Anywho, that is all of our Super Chats for today, so we can now wrap up, Dev. Dev is overjoyed at this.
Wow, hold on. We are 1 hour early, and we started an hour early.
Yeah, we would have been right on time if it weren't for V.
Oh my god, that means I have to start my stream an hour early if I'm going to get your raid.
Plus,
Here.
we did have a lot less Dev versus everyone topics today.
Let's
the
do
only
it.
one you were
Let's talk about the Hunter Biden indictment
today.
that happened. The Hunter Biden indictment happened. We can talk about that.
The only thing you were properly wrong about today, Dev, was that robots have souls, which is clearly nonsense.
Oh, no. I wasn't saying that robots have souls. I'm saying that we don't have souls.
And that slightly communist speech that you had at one point as well.
Here. You know what? I'll start my stream early. Talk to him for 5 minutes while I go turn it on, and I'll be back in a second, okay?
Okay, Dev. Well, everyone, thank you very much for watching. We will indeed be raiding Dev after this. That will be the deal at the moment, where we will send people over to Dev after we are done here. So Dev gets something out of this too, because Dev is fat and greedy, yes. Has it been 5 minutes yet, Dev? Has it? It probably hasn't been 5 minutes yet. Meanwhile, I will head over to little Kibet's stream as well. That's probably in another hour, I think, where we will be playing a little bit more Green Hell too, so that'll be fun. And Dev did make another video, which you might want to check out too.
Fire is the
Slavery
answer.
and Equality in Final Fantasy 16. That one might be good. Dev does make good videos. He does. Despite being wrong on most things, he is correct when he gets to have a nice long script in front of him, and it doesn't have to do with any contemporary day politics or corruption, where Dev is incapable of seeing the big pile of money being stolen in front of his face. Or the judicial system, or the legal system, or justice in any real way, form, or existence, really. But otherwise, when it comes to racism, Dev is quite on point.
Heresy's the question. Fire is the answer.
Chloe says, I find it funny that a lot of atheists will believe in simulation theory, yet creation theory is too far and silly. I mean, yes,
I
that is a
have
good point, I
lost.
suppose.
Shit.
Marksman117B says, Dev, show the cameo video from Discord. It's safe for work. I don't know if it is.
I'm back. Oh, someone in the chat asked, why didn't I just set up the stream room ahead of time? I did, but I mean, if you raid a stream that isn't turned on, people just immediately leave it, right? So I just went and turned on the stream, and I put up like a little timer saying that I'll be starting in a few minutes. So I'm gonna go get dressed and go do that. However, first of all,
dressed. Hold on a second, Dev.
listen, I don't have my camera on.
Hold on a second, Dev.
Yeah, I don't have my camera on.
Dev,
Yeah.
for next time, for my peace of mind, could you... underwear, at least, please.
Well, I have that on.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. Pants?
Yeah, I have that on. No.
No. Shirt?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Okay, good.
Okay, so listen. I heard what you said about my videos while I was up getting things ready. I have wireless headphones. I know what's going on. God damn it, Arch.
In the know.
I can, in fact, see the bigger picture. Just that sometimes I see a different bigger picture. I see the bigger picture, actually.
Sometimes he sees the picture in his mind.
Well, I did see, for example, recently that the White House said that if Hunter Biden were found guilty, President Biden would not be pardoning him, and Biden's basically staying out of it. So, and also the indictment that happened, maybe Hunter Biden will get slapped with something. I guess we'll have to see.
We'll see, Dev. We'll see. Socks, by the way?
No, of course not.
Yeah. See, I was kind of hoping for socks, at least. Well, Animate Acumen with the last super chat of the day. No, he's sending us to the gulag. And
There's
then,
two super chats, yeah.
Lucian comes in at the end saying, simulation theory equals huffing paint. Probably, to be fair. Like, I don't believe the Matrix idea that we would rebel against paradise. I think if you gave everyone enough big-titted waifus, we would be pretty complacent.
Well, the thing about simulation theory is one of the big reasons is because of the Planck limits. So, for example, we have like a Planck length. You know what the Planck length is?
What is the Planck length?
It's a ridiculously small length that is like many orders of magnitude smaller than atoms. And basically, we've discovered that you can't go any smaller than that. So that size basically represents like a pixel of the universe, where you can't divide it anymore. It's like either a full Planck or no Planck. Like it's like one Planks or two Planks. Like there's no 1.5 Planks. It basically, because of the way physics works, it is the smallest possible distance, and you can't go smaller. And it's like, well, that's kind of disquieting because that's like a pixel on a screen, basically. It's like, well, that seems like we might be in some sort of a simulation.
Or it could simply mean that our physical universe is based on, well, physics. Because at some point you can only take up so much space.
And then you have like Planck time. And I mean, Planck time is the amount of time it takes light to travel one Planck length. So basically, you can't.
Fire is the answer.
You can't, like, that's like a time pixel. You can't divide that unit any smaller. That's like, well, that kind of sounds strange. And then you have there's like Planck heat, where because heat is just a wavelength of visible and invisible light that's radiating off of whatever it is. If the wavelength becomes the Planck length, then you can't go any hotter. Basically, if you look into, like, his name was something Planck, obviously. Planck. Max Planck. He was German, obviously. It takes a German to discover autistic shit like this. But basically, Max Planck discovered the hard theoretical limits of the universe, and they imply that we might be living in a very advanced simulation.
Well, if the aliens have nothing better to do than to watch us, then clearly they can't be that advanced.
Goddamn. Some guy says Dev's peen is one Planck length. Thanks.
One Planck. Artemis Fowl says, don't let Dev lie to you, Arch. That pardon question was for when Hunter thought they had a plea deal that gave him immunity. No guarantees now. Dev.
That is not true because that
Dev.
question was asked like yesterday, and the plea deal was several weeks ago. That's not true.
Dev.
Artemis. I'm not lying. I'm not lying.
Dev. I know in the doc says they say they won't, Dev, which means nothing. Oh, true. That does mean nothing.
Okay, you know what? I don't accept this logic for a goddamn second, okay? The White House... Okay, here. There's that... You have one word coming out where it's like, okay, I will not pardon my son if he's found guilty. And you guys say, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. It's not going to happen. No, he's... And then another leaked conversation comes out where Biden says to, like, his... He says it in private. When Garland isn't even there, he says, man, I wish Garland would prosecute Trump because Trump's dangerous. That's Biden's personal opinion. And Garland was never told this. And you guys think that means he told him. All right? Like, there's an obvious double standard here where you think that Biden is lying or telling the truth, however it happens to work out for your politics. And it's a little bit ridiculous.
Service guarantees
My
citizenship.
double standard is better than yours, though, Dev. It seems to reflect reality better.
I don't know about that.
Glow in the Dark says, wow, physical matter has limits, so we can agree intelligent design. Oh, now the argument is who did it, E.T. or God. I like God.
Yeah, there is like there is one of those like intelligence curves where basically on the low and high IQ ends of the spectrum, you have people who say, I think somebody created the universe. And then in the middle, you have people saying, no, it's all just the natural world.
Yeah, but I like it being God instead. Because at least then he could have done it for a higher purpose rather than just making, Netflix.
I have lost. Shit.
Glow in the Dark says, repeat after me. I didn't have a blowjob with that woman.
I mean, yes, obviously people can lie, right? I'm not saying they can't. You know what? I don't have time. I got to go do my own stream. But thanks for having me, Arch.
Yep.
You know what? You want to talk about the indictment next week? We can do that.
Maybe.
Okay, I'll see you later, man.
Yep. All right, everyone. We will wrap it up there. So until next time, I have been Arch, and that was indeed my pet Canadian, Dev, who thinks all people are lacking in souls. Not just the cut myself up to avoid being deleted off YouTube.
Heresy's the question.
Have a good day.
Fire is the answer.
And mine, Artemis Fowl says, Dev, there is no double standard. You're just being silly. Standard is that the White House operates at the behest of the establishment and Dems. But who are the establishment, Artemis? Who are the mysterious they? Bartimus. Can Bartimus explain that? He might not be. Until next week, have a good night.